I'm Jay, and 4 years ago, I made this video about texturing skin with Substance Painter, and people still let me know that that tutorial was helpful. So this is the sequel to that video, but instead of focusing on texturing skin, it's about everything else. I've tried to cram as much useful info and techniques and tools for texturing some of the most common materials with Substance Painter. So this is my super duper big texturing tutorial. I've also made the project files for this available to anyone, the link's down below, so you can download these and you can texture this helmet project yourself, or you can take a look at my scene, my completed scene for reference. And I've also included some decals that I've made and samples by Jonas Runnegård, so you can use those. And I've also included my export presets for Unreal Engine. The full 7-hour raw version of this demo is already available and at my course at characterclass.com, and it's available for all the students there already. And I've also uploaded that same unedited version to this channel for members and my patrons. So if you really want the unedited real-time version of this demo, you can watch it for as little as $7. Lastly, shout out to the homie Brecky Thor BT from the servers, who made this initial helmet model for me to use in this demo. And also shout out to Hazel Brown. She made the hair model that I used in the final presentation at the end. First, I want to start off by showing you my references for the project that I'm going to be showing, and also just a quick word about my texturing philosophy, and then we'll jump right into the demo. Enjoy, and I hope you learned something. Okay, so here in PureF, we can see some references, and here are helmets. This is very much the vibe. And then here's this idea of the Hollywood texturing. So when doing texturing, I think there are two kinds of parallel things going on. There is the storytelling side of things, the cause and effect, you know, the very kind of mathematical way to look at things. What are things made out of? How are they put together? How do they interact? Where have they been? What's been happening? And again, we're drawing on those so that we can do the creative part. That's the parallel thing going on, is that in addition to what things are made out of and where they're from, is the overall kind of aesthetic look of what we're doing. And we're going to be balancing and using those two things together. So the way something looks, you want it to be appealing. You want it to be readable. All right. You can think of your work, your assets, and having like a first, second, and third read. That first read needs to make a nice impact, be clear, legible, and make a nice first impression, right? Someone needs to look at it and go, oh, cool. And then the second read starts to be more the storytelling aspects, and the third read is like the details. And if those keep holding up, you have something that's really great. And we can see that in some of these Hollywood things, you know? So things aren't perfectly clean. Here's an example from this, the cool show, Knights of the Seven Kingdoms, that's going on right now. But here you have people in white armor. And so the white, you still have like, you know, here's like, it looks like maybe rain or something, right? So you have some rust dripping down, dirt around here. So you have different whites, different shades, okay? And you have different kind of types of grime. We'll show it again. Right here is a good example, okay? Some work from Weta. Here's something that is meant to be new and clean. Nothing will ever be actually perfectly clean. So you see some kind of subtle, you know, looks like just dirt in some ABS plastic bumps or whatever. You get some cloudiness on the surface. So that's the cleanest it's going to be. And if you look closely here, do you see how there's kind of like grime inside the insets and in the corners? And you see the little edge wear on the edges? This is the fundamental thing I'm talking about, is at a base level, you always are still going to be trying to emphasize certain shapes that you want, making something graphic and readable. And that's how we're balancing it, right? If we can kind of make this seem like believable, maybe dirt would go in there. Maybe it would get some edge wear, okay? And we're walking that line because we don't want it to be too procedural, but this is a common technique, you know, in the Hollywood prop stuff, that they'll do washes of different kinds of thin paint and they'll rub it away so that the cavities and recesses get darker. They'll rub and buff the edges to pop them out. And so we're doing that sort of thing too when we're texturing, okay? So this is the kind of curated look we're going for. That it doesn't look necessarily like a found object. It looks like, you know, a nice, cool prop. That's the first read, very simple, easy, boom, got it, graphic. And then we're holding it up with the details we go through. Let's talk about the scene setup, okay? So when you open this scene or any new scene when you're starting, some things that you might want to change, at least I change every time. If we come over here to the display settings, you'll see if I increase the environment opacity and I turn down the blur, this is the default, which is like a sunny field. I still think this is a mistake that they do this, and it looks kind of even hidden because people may not know. We'll do the number one, dude. Tomoko, bro. Studio Tomoko. This is where it's at. If you know, you know. This is the best HDRI that's out there. So yeah, we need just Team Tomoko, guys. All right, this is all you need to know. You can blur it a little bit if you want, but I'll just lower the opacity too. We can just be in a black void, honestly, or we can, you know, a little bit of something if you want. But all right, so this is the one change I would make. And then the camera settings, I like to change the focal length. I don't know what it starts at, maybe 30 or something, but it looks all kind of warped or whatever. So 50 is a good little rule of thumb. This would be the lens that's somewhat similar to the human eye, okay? And then if you're doing a portrait, sometimes I change this to 85. But those are just a couple things we'll do right off the bat. Just an overview of the scene. You can see we have 4 texture sets. And you don't really need lights in here. But yeah, really 3 texture sets. We're gonna texture the helmet, the cables, and the visor. And you can see the helmet is 4 UDIMs. We're gonna jump over to the helmet. We're gonna do that. We're gonna spend most of our time here on helmet. If I hit F1 on the keyboard, you can see the layout. So here it is. This is the bake and the layout for now. You can see both at the same time. Check that out. All right, so that should be good. Now we got neutral light. And that's why we changed our HDRI, by the way. We don't want color cast. So when you're in a sunny field, it's gonna cast a color. So you want a desaturated environment and you want something that looks a little bit believable. The first thing I do at the start of any texturing project, similar in 3D, is to block out your scene, okay? Blocking out your scene is super important because it gives us our first run, it's our first draft, and we get to think about it in terms of what materials do I need, and we'll set up the scene by using folders for each material. We'll make our masks, and it's really our first pass at outlining what we need to do the texturing. So we're gonna front end some of that stuff, and so we're just gonna set ourselves up for success. So let's do that. We're gonna block out this scene, and we'll start making materials with folders. We'll name them, and then we'll start making fill layers and masks and really outline everything we think we need right now for this helmet project. All right, first thing I'll do is I'm gonna delete this default layer or whatever, and I'm gonna make fill layers, and I'm gonna put those fill layers in folders. The first fill layer I make at the start of everything is, I just call it base. If you see here on the left, we're gonna add every channel and we're gonna set the defaults. Because the way that Substance Painter works is that it goes bottom up, all right? And because of certain things we're gonna do later, if we don't set defaults, then it'll just inherit something later. So this might make sense as we add more things, but it's really good practice to set your base, your bottom kind of anchor layer at the bottom that just have all your defaults, okay? So for height, we'll keep 0. For roughness, that's fine. Metallic 0, normal 0. So this is fine for now. So this is our base layer. You can even, by the way, like sometimes I'll make this a bright color so that you can see the areas that don't have a material yet. But maybe for now we'll keep this white so you should still see it, but it won't be so obnoxious. Okay, so now we're gonna create a folder. Let's start with metal. And then for organization, I'm gonna keep my materials capital letters. All right, and then inside we're gonna create a base. So I'll do another fill layer. We'll call this base. We just call it base metal, I guess, if we wanna be organized. And then the base color, we can keep this. Roughness, we'll do 0.3 is fine. And metallic, 1. All right, so already we got metal going. Look at that. All right, and then let's do paint. All right, and then for that, we'll just do a reddish color. And then roughness, we'll do, that's fine for now. Metallic 0. So now we have a nice red paint. All right, and then we can even do a height. Why don't we'll just have a height layer on here for right now. So we can already start masking some stuff. Why don't we start with this paint mask? So we have the metal, right? And the way we're gonna think of this is we're gonna build our materials up, and you can see in the layer outliner stack here, we're gonna do it in the order that it would be in the real world. So the whole thing is metal for now. Later we'll replace it with some plastic parts. But you can imagine almost like the whole thing is boom, metal, and then we're gonna do paint on top of that, dirt on top of that, right? It could be paint or metal, paint, stickers, dirt, you see what I mean? So we're gonna layer it up. You want your layer stack on the right here to always be that, emulating the layer order that it would be in the real world. So we'll start by doing some paint right now. so we can overlay it on top of the metal. We'll right click and add a black mask, and then we can add a paint layer here. Now, this is the first thing to know. I add a paint layer for everything. I don't, as you can see, like if I was just in this mask, I can paint directly in this mask, okay? Because I have a paintbrush right here, right? I can just choose a paintbrush and I can paint in this mask. Now, I don't do that because one of the great things about Substance Painter is that it can be non-destructive, or, you know, very non-destructive, maybe not 100%. But that means that you can go back and edit and change things. You can split things out, and that's what we want. We want to be able to go backwards and forwards. So I never do anything directly in the mask. Everything I'll do, I'll add a little modifier thing here. So instead of painting, I'll add a paint layer, okay? Because then I can add more paint layers, and you can name these. So super great. You can be organized, and again, you can just go back and change anything at any time. That's what we want. So I'm gonna come over here. You can see this polygon fill, and this gives me some options. So we'll go over a few different ways that you can do masks. So a lot of these meshes are separate, make our lives easier. So I can just start clicking and it'll add paint, right? So I'll just add paint to this stuff. There you go. Adding paint here. Okay, how are we looking? Shift and right click is how I'm moving the light around. All right, here's some paint right here. Here's some paint right here. I won't spend too much on this side just for the demo. As long as it looks good from this side, I'll be good. So here's our first example of, like, we might want to wear this away, but maybe I'll come back and I'll just wear this away. You know, like maybe the heat's messing it up. But still, we'll keep it simple in the beginning. All right, so we've got our paint masked on there. Great. Now let's do plastic. Then we'll add our fill layer and we'll call this base plastic. Okay, and then for base plastic, we'll do kind of a darkish color. Height, we'll just turn that on for now. So it can be at 0 still. Roughness, why don't we do 0.45, a little bit rough, not too much. And then metallic 0. So now we've got a dark plastic. Now we'll add a black mask to that folder. And again, we'll do a paint layer and we'll start layering this up. All right, we make this plastic, this whole hose plastic. Could also do the inside. Okay, so there's our first, hey, we don't want to do the whole mesh, right? We just want to do the inside. Okay, well, you can come over here. You can see you can do UV chunk fill instead. And then I can do this because I separated the UVs there so that I could do this very thing. Come back to the polygon or object fill, mesh fill. And then we'll do most of this stuff. So why don't we fill this and this, this. Pretty much everything but the hardware. And then we'll fill everything in here maybe. Yeah, why don't we just fill all this stuff. And then we'll make these inserts here plastic. Actually, we'll do, this could be plastic too. That would make sense. Just while we're working, why don't we do something nice, soft lighting. How about this? There we go. That way we can see. Let's turn the lights on so we can see. Okay, looks pretty good. Also, you see this wireframe? Like, I don't really need that to be that crazy. So why don't we change that too? Come in here. Let's turn down the wireframe opacity. I don't think we need it that much. So now we got some plastic bits. Is everything? This could be plastic too. So I think we're pretty good with that. Now let's do leather. And then let's come in here. We'll do base leather. And we'll choose a brownish color. And then we'll do roughness, 0.3 height, metal 0. We'll come back to this. Leather's a whole thing. But let's just mask it where we think we'll need it. Got our mesh fill. Here's a leather strap. Here's a leather strap. Here's a leather strap. All right, we good there. And I think that's all the leather we got on this one. Okie doke. Mr. Plastic. Okay, now let's do fabric. We've got a couple fabric elements here. So fabric. Now, instead of creating a fill layer, why don't we type in fabric? And I actually know that there's one I can use right here. Fabric cotton jersey, I think it's called. Yeah, fabric cotton jersey. And then I'll just drag and drop it in there. There you go. Gonna want to change some of the things here. Let's see. Well, we'll just change the tiling. Why don't we make it 8? There we go. It's better. Okay. And then the fabric color, we'll make it more of just an off-white kind of feeling. And then fabric color variation, make that higher. There we go. Nice. Look, a little pilling there. And then let's see, weft distortion. We can even mess around with this. How about we do we'll just do 0.1. There we go. Get a little bit of things there. And then the height range, we don't need it to be that big. So we'll make it a little bit softer. There we go. So it's softer, but there you go. So you got some tooth to it. See? And there we used one of these base materials that comes with the program. All right, so now we'll add a black mask, paint, and then we'll select that fabric. There we go. So now I've got our fabric things chosen. Great. Okay, looking good. All right, well, there you go so far. Done. No, not really. But there, so now we've outlined the materials that at least we think we need right now. Metal, paint, plastic, leather, fabric. Looks good. We have our masks. Now we can start adding more nuance and detail to try to make these materials feel more like the materials, and then we can start layering, adding more detail. All right, so next we're gonna do metal. We're gonna focus on doing the metal base. Now we're gonna be focusing on texturing metal. All right, we're gonna add some more fill layers, some more nuance and roughness and things like that, and we're gonna build up our base metal, try to make this helmet, at least the base metal, look good, and we'll go over some different techniques and filters and stuff like that. All right, so let's jump into that. Closed up these other folders. We don't need these. And we can even start assigning these some colors so we can separate this even better. So let's add our first wear level. We'll add another fill layer. We'll call this wear. And then over for the base color, make it a little bit darker. Make this 55. And then for roughness, we're also going to increase the roughness, go something around 0.8. Okay, and then we're going to add a black mask to this. And then we are going to add a fill layer. And then in here, we're going to use some grunge. I'm going to use this a lot. So we'll type in grunge paint scratched and see what we got here. So we got grunge right here, paint scratched. I'll always love this one. Now you could drop this right here. You could drop it in there. You could come over here to the fill layer and type in here. You could go grunge paint scratched. Same thing. Okay, 3 different ways to do it. All right, now we are gonna do some editing of this. So why don't we turn these off so you can see. Here's our metal for now, okay? Here's what we're cooking with. Now, we need this to be nice and sharp. So let's do tiling. We're gonna set this instead of 1 to 10. And then balance, let's drop it down a little bit. And then contrast, let's up this. All right, and then we'll add a filter. So we'll right click, add filter. And we'll come over here and we'll do, here's all your filters. You can filter just for filters. If I type in sharp, you'll see a little triangle guy. I'll click that. Oh, so nice. Defaults to a little bit too much. Let's drop it down to 0.15, but you can see if I turn it on and off, better, okay? So here's our first wear layer for our metal, just so it doesn't look too perfect, right? Now let's do another one. We're gonna add another fill layer and we'll call that noise. And then for noise, we'll do a little brighter color, okay? Maybe 0.85. And then for roughness, we'll do 0.85. We'll add a black mask to this. Black mask. And now some more common fills that you'll use. Noise. So if I just search for noise in my assets, we can look for, how about a 3D Perlin right here? Is this fractal? Yeah, 3D Perlin noise fractal. Let's do that. Go right there. And then for projection, we're gonna switch it to match per UV tile because it's UDIMs. That way it goes across the UDIMs. And then for position, for this one, we'll go 0.36. We'll drop it a little bit. Contrast, let's do 0.45. Now, if I hold Alt and click the mask, you can see it. Okay, so why don't we do that so you can see what we're doing. And then for scale, let's do 10. So it's getting bigger. And then in here, it has something called roughness. That's just for the actual pattern. And we'll up that too. Here's our noise, breaking it up. But a little bit too procedural, a little bit too perfect. So we're gonna add another. We're gonna right click here and we're gonna add a new one. Fill, and let's do a 3D Perlin noise fractal again. Why don't we do that again? And then we're gonna set this to multiply. So here, let's isolate this so you can see again. So this is what we made, adding a new one. But if we set it to multiply, just like in Photoshop, it's going to be removing from it. So for position, we can leave this, generally right here. And then for contrast, we'll go up quite a bit. And for scale, we'll make it even So yeah, so now we're removing it from some places. You see, if I make it really strong, you can see. So hit M, there you go. So now we have our noise, which is breaking up the light. All right, and this is the kind of nuance. We just keep adding and adding and adding and adding, and it's gonna feel better. All right, now let's add edge wear to this. We're gonna add a new fill layer. We're gonna type in edge wear, and then let's make the base color white, and then roughness we'll just do 0.5. We'll add a black mask to this, and then we'll add another common thing, edge wear generator. So let's do generator. Go over here. We'll type in metal edge wear. You see right there? Metal edge wear. Doink. So we'll load this. Nice. All right, let's jump into this mask and see what's going on. Looking cool, but you know, we're gonna edit some stuff. So wear level, we're gonna make this come up a little bit. Wear contrast, we're gonna go down a little bit. And then for the grunge amount, go down a little bit. Because we don't want too much grunge for this. We're gonna add our own grunge, you know? And then edge smoothness, 1.7. There you go. That really softens it. Okay. Now we'll add a sharpen to this too. So right click, filter, and then we'll make this 0.25. Doesn't need to be. All right. So again, you can see what the sharpening is doing. Looking good. And then you can see what this edge wear is doing. Yeah, I think I'll just turn off the roughness for the edge wear and just leave it base color for now. Okay. All right, cool. So we got this. We got some edges popping out and we've got some grungy stuff. Let's add scratches. So add another fill layer and we'll call it scratches. And then we'll add a black mask and then we'll right click and we'll add scratches generator. Let's go over here to generator. We'll type in scratches. So there should be a scratches generator. All right, so we're gonna add that as our fill layer. There you go, scratches generator. All right, now we're gonna make a bunch of changes to this. Again, let's isolate the mask. You see what we're doing. All right, for spline number, we're gonna lower that down a bunch, make it like 200. Spline scale, maybe 0.75, something like that. Spline width, make it thinner. And then spline scale random, a little bit. And then width random, a little bit. All right, and then spline distortion, that's good. Spline distortion frequency, maybe a little bit more. Okay, and then fade length. Yeah, we're gonna do both ends. We wanna fade in and out. And then the length, you know, maybe a little bit like that. Okay, so that is our scratches. Now what we could do is we can make this white if we wanted to, or maybe just a little bit brighter. And then for roughness, we could go really rough or we could go really smooth. Depends on what you want, really. Even in the height, we could do a little bit in the height if we wanted to like really, you know, mess with the lighting. But now we've got scratches too. And you can, again, because it's non-destructive, you can go and balance all this stuff. Okay, so let's just keep adding stuff. All right, we're gonna do screws. We're gonna make a layer just for our screws, just because they're inheriting a lot of the big wear and we wanna kind of curate that. You could actually make your own folder just for screws if you wanted to, or, you know, separate multiple things out, but we'll keep it all in the metal folder, but you can do whatever you want. So like we'll make a fill layer now just for screws, and then we'll do roughness and metallic. So let's do roughness, 0.5. Metallic's obviously going to be 1. And then for the base color, we're gonna do something a little different. For the base color, we're gonna add a generator. So we'll come in here and we'll do curvature. So we're gonna use this curvature for our base color. I'm gonna hold Alt and I'm gonna click color just so it only is on the color. And then we'll mess around with this. So we got color only, balance, we'll do 0.45. And then we'll add, oh, let's go and change this, yeah. So then for the mode, yeah, we want edges. Sharp, we're gonna leave at 1. Fine, we'll drop down 0.66. If you haven't used this before, use this curvature all the time. And then big, we'll leave big 0.25, I guess. There, so now it kind of looks nicer for our screws. You see what I mean? Okay, cool. Now, because now we get like darker holes and everything. So we're gonna add a black mask to this and we're gonna select our screws. See, this looks better for our screws. You can actually click whatever you want because you could use this. Now you have like a second, you could just name this something else, you know, like old metal or whatever. So you can just click random stuff that you want with this kind of darker look. You know, maybe even that's cool, right? I don't know. All right, again, I'm not gonna spend too much time over there, but let's just get these in case they're in view. So it's kind of like a darker anodized look for the screws. Alrighty, we got some screws. Let's add another one, another fill layer. We'll call this one Surface Imperfections. And then let's add some stuff for our base. Here, let's see, height 0.03. And then we're gonna do, this is more like form stuff. And then we'll add black mask, we'll add clouds. So let's just look for clouds. We'll do clouds 1. And then we'll set the scale to 3. And then layer opacity, we're gonna drop it down. So can you see the light moving across this? See the difference? Makes it bumpier. And we're gonna lower this. Now, you need to lower the opacity. Here's your first brain teaser. If you're new to Substance at all, and you're not used to this. So here's our entire layer stack, right? We have blend modes and we have opacity and all that. If I have to switch it to each channel to control that stuff per channel. So you actually have, you know, however many channels you have, that's how many you have to manage. And this will come up time and time again, but I'll just show you now, right? So we're gonna come in here, we're gonna go to height and we're gonna change, you can see the blend mode is linear dodge, let's add, and we're gonna change the opacity. We'll change the opacity to something like 40. So now if I go on and off, subtle, okay, can you see that? Let's get a glancing angle here. There, you see the light coming? Okay, so that's, again, subtle, but just making things more imperfect. That's why we called it surface imperfections, guys. Go back to base color, that's usually where we hang out. Let's add some more stuff. We'll go fill layer, and then we'll do grunge plaster paint. Yes, check this out, grunge plaster paint. All right, balance, we'll do 0.9. And then tiling amount, okay? So now we've got some kind of chunks missing too. But now as you see the light roll, you see that? That's the whole point of this, is to see the light rolling around and then getting caught on stuff. Glancing angles. It looks more like a rough surface now. And that's the idea. All right. Maybe our first opportunity to check out iRay. So that's this camera button. If I click this camera button, it's going to open up the iRay renderer. This is an actual ray trace renderer. And so you'll get, you know, actual like bounce lighting and ray trace shadows and stuff. And this is a good way to check materials because this is like the ground truth. Real time will be different, but you can just see, does it feel like metal interacting? So you see you get these little damages and stuff like that. So I'll change the opacity so that's not so deep and just make them like little chunks missing. Like maybe this is a little bit more like rock. So here we'll come in and we'll change this to 50. So yeah, now subtle, but that's okay. That's what it's all about. All right, so here is our nice base metal. Cool. And ready to layer up more and more stuff. If you were gonna have something be kind of pure, a big piece of this that's metal, that's always, I would think about it, like if there's a part of your asset that's a big part, then you want to bring interest. You're going to treat that differently. But this is our underlying material, and what we're going to end up doing is revealing it here and there. So you can be a little bit more heavy-handed. You can scatter things a little bit more. That's what we're doing here. But if you wanted to have an entire exposed metal piece, then you probably come in and add some more, you know, hand-curated nuance or things here and there, break up things so it's not so procedural. But for our base metal, for what we're doing, is a good start. Let's see. Let's add, before we're done, let's add one last thing, and that's some shiny metal. Maybe we can wrap up our surface imperfections with a sharpen first, and then we'll just make this like 0.33, I guess, just so it's not too crazy. All right, so we got some little dings, and let's finish with shiny metal. Shiny metal, and then we're gonna do base color value 0.735, that's fine. And then height, we're gonna do this. And then roughness, we're gonna do shiny. Now, here is your next lesson in managing layer blends. If I come over to height, okay, you see it's on linear dodge add by default. We can actually go to height and I'll show you. In height, we're gonna set it to replace. Now you see what that did? It replaced all of the height below it with 0. Now that's gonna let us add these polished pockets. All right, so now we could add a black mask, and then we could add fill layer here, and then maybe we want, maybe we want to do the metal here, metal edge wear. Okay, and then we'll make smaller, and then we'll do the smoothness for sure, or contrast, and then do a lot more grunge, and then we'll make it bigger. There we go. So now we've got some shine coming through too. So again, if you wanted to show an individual panel or you want an entire metal helmet, you might go about it a little differently, or at least in the way it looks. But this is an example of adding lots of fill layers that have different elements that are mixing together, and you can create a nuanced look. So you can see the difference between these layers isn't so big, at least not between all of them, but by layering them and mixing them, having that variety, it can give you a nice base look. And we haven't even used our brush yet. That's going to come later. Got to be careful not to, because I tend to do this, not to go too long and just never use your brush and it's just everything's procedural. That has a look to it too. So adding paint masks to these, coming in, wiping away. Again, you can do that at the end when you see it in context. But that's the kind of thing that really makes it, the manual, finessing at the end. Let's start texturing our plastics. All right, we're going to set up our base for plastics, and we're going to have a couple different colors. We'll add some nuance so that there's a little bit more life in the plastics of our helmet. Okay, so here's some techniques on how I do that. All right, so why don't we turn on our plastic fill layer? This is what we had before, just basic, right? So start adding some more nuance to this. Now we want to get a little bit more detailed here. Right now, this is just our base plastic. So let's start adding some different types of plastics. That's really what we need. We need variety. And so let's start with, let's just change this to rubber. So we'll call this rubber. Is it really rubber? I don't know, but it's going to be, actually, let's see if we can use a material. Rubber raw. There you go. We're going to use an actual material here, rubber raw. And then we'll make this black for later. All right, rubber raw. There we go. Pretty cool, right? Already get a lot of stuff for free. Okay, we need to change this from UV. We'll do triplanar. So that goes across seams. And then for tiling, we can change that to 10. All right, and then roughness variation. I'm gonna drop that down a little bit here. And then the height range, we gotta drop that down quite a bit. So the height range, it's at 0.2 now. We'll do 0.05, so it's like a fraction of it. There you go. And then the roughness variation, maybe it's still too much. That's the roughness variation at 0. Already gonna get into a little bit more tricky stuff. I don't like this roughness variation, so I'm gonna add a levels, and I'm gonna do just the roughness. And then I'm gonna bring these in so there's like less variation, because I want to add my own variation. You know what I mean? All right, so already looking better, right, guys? Look at that, already looking better. Wow, I love these little things that happen on there. I love little happy accents like that. Okay, so there we go. Let's add a new thing. Well, maybe we'll mask this. Where should this go? Yeah, maybe up there would be good too. So why don't we go to our plastic? Let's add some more stuff here. All right, we got our plastics here. Let's do this too. Actually, we're going to use our UV selection for this mask. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to have to use our, where is that one? I have to use our polygon selection, I guess. All right, so I want plastic all the way around, but not the actual center. So we're gonna do this. I should have just split this in the UVs, but I didn't. And here we are. And this can be a lot of what texturing is. So we're growing our mask, our overall plastic material mask. Okay, so we got some plastics cooking here. All right, let's add a new one. Let's go black shiny. Let's do this one and call it black shiny. All right, and then for black shiny, let's do this. Height, we'll make it 0. Don't think we need metalness anymore because we have the base below, right? So we're gonna make this pretty dark. Let's say for the base color, 0.15. And then for roughness, we want to be shiny, don't we? So how about 0.15? Pretty shiny, huh? And then height for 0. And then we're gonna want to replace that. So remember, if we're in our height, normally, you default to the base color, but we want to change this to height. And instead of linear dodge, we're gonna go replace. And that didn't do anything. It did something, but I think our rubber, on the topic of layer blends, okay, just to recap, because I don't know, people might skip around, right? This is just an important thing to understand with Substance Painter. That's unique to Substance Painter, okay? That's why I want to harp on this. You have the different channels, base color, height, roughness. Those are different layer stacks here that have different parameters right here on the right. The blend modes, the opacities, and you have to jump around, okay, to edit those. Now, what's happening here is the metal down below. Look at that. The metal height information down below is still there. And that's because folders by default are not set to pass through. They're just set to normal. Pass through means it's affecting everything below it. So I'm on base color now, right? So if I change this to pass through, then it sets the folders blend mode to pass through just for base color. But we want it for height. That'd be kind of a pain in the butt to go to each of these, right? So here's something that took me way too long to learn that you're gonna know right now. If you right click on it, you can apply to all channels. And look at that. We just replaced the height. And why did that work? Because first of all, that right click apply to all channels. I'm gonna use it a lot more in this demo, but you just use it all the time. So that's because in here we have our black shiny height 0 replace. So now if I jump over to height, you can see it's on pass through because it's on pass through now on all channels. So now my height is set to replace. You can see now I can actually, so there's the metal. Now my rubber is on top. Now my black shiny is on top of that. So that's the only way to get this stuff to work. You have to make sure you understand how these things interact. And again, we're gonna do this over and over again. That way, in case you're new to that, and I'm sorry for the people that already knew all that stuff because it's probably boring to death, but it's super crucial. I think this trips a lot of people up. Okay, so there's black and shiny. Alrighty, so let's make some shiny stuff. Do a black mask, and then we'll add paint, and this is fun now that everything's set up. We can just go doot, 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 you know? So I think making the little tubes shiny is cool, and then maybe this thing? All right, that's good enough. This thing's a little bit distracting, this background. I don't know, it's brighter, better or not, I don't know. I'm gonna say no. All right, now it's nice and shiny, cool. Okay, good enough for now. Let's add a new plastic. We're gonna do gray. All right, let's set up our gray plastic. Base color, we're gonna set it to, if I don't know what to do, I either do 7553325, something like that. Roughness, 0.55. Remember, this stuff's all non-destructive, right? That's why it's so cool. Okay, and then, all right, let's set a mask to this. Black mask, paint, let's start clicking stuff. This will be gray plastic. This will be gray plastic. That'll be gray plastic. This will be gray plastic. Look, we're making two-tone stuff now, guys. Okay, a little more interesting now. And then this little strip up here can be gray for now. So there you go. Now we got a little gray plastic going on. Looking cool. Looking cool. And then we do need our little button here. We need red plastic. Why don't I just duplicate black shiny because it already has the replace on there. Let's call it red. And then for this, we need roughness. We'll make it less shiny because it's not as shiny, is it? And then we'll do red. And then we'll delete that one and we'll add our new paint layer and we'll choose our button. There we go. So now we have our button. There you go. Now, before we dip out, we did some more materials, but like, you know, we probably want some scratches, don't we? So let's see here. Let's do, here, we'll zoom in here so we can see. So let's add a new fill layer. We'll call it scratches. And then we're gonna go to base color and we're gonna set the blend mode to overlay. Oh, can't see anything because of this value. We need to go white. And then let's do roughness at 0.7. So it's getting rough too, okay? Because that's how we're saying the plastic gets worn, it gets more rough. Then we're gonna add a smart mask, all right? So here's a new thing too. See these things, you can see smart masks. Now we'll search for paint subtle scratch is a good one. We can just drag this right on the masked thing and boom. Smart masks are like smart layers, smart materials where it just saves all the stuff we've been adding. We've been adding these manually one by one, right? And you can save whatever you want as your own smart mask, but Substance comes with some. So there you go. Now you can see, so we're already cooking with something, which is cool. It is the inverse of what we want. So we can flip that. We'll do global invert true. And then we're gonna add a sharp into this too. And now you can come in here and you can change whatever you want, you know, if you want it to be less. And then you can also set the value instead of 1, you know, you could do 0.95 or 0.92 or something like that. So it's just more subtle, right? There you go. Now at least it doesn't look like brand new plastic. It's got some life there. And then even the you have some things in here too that are like subtracting. Oh, those are just scratches. Okay, what about this? So now I'm just editing what's already there, but that way I'm getting less of the worn plastic everywhere, right? Just kind of like making it a little bit more subtle. All right, as you can see, I could literally just do this all day long. So we'll stop right there. There you go. Here's some plastic. Why don't we go jump into iRay, see what it looks like with some actual rendering. Got a few different plastics cooking. We've got some wear, you know, so we got some interest in here. Good thing to start with, because then from here, we can add more and more handmade stuff. And then, you know, we can curate it more from here. We can add dirt and all that kind of stuff, but just flushing out our plastic material layer. It's looking good. And so next we're gonna talk about paint. We're gonna do some of the similar techniques. Essentially, we've covered the essentials now. Fill layers, filters, generators, smart masks, blend modes, folders, that kind of stuff, right? You're gonna use time and time again. Now we're gonna introduce anchors for the first time, and powerful, and it's really cool. And we're gonna do some tricky stuff with that. So next, let's talk about paint. All right, so now inside our paint folder, we're gonna create another folder. Inception, dude. So we're gonna go paint colors now. And then inside of our paint colors, we're gonna do all the colors we think we want for our, okay? This is gonna be different for you. So we're definitely gonna want a red. We'll come back to that, but we're gonna want orange. And we can just set that real quick. Let's do orange. And then we'll do a roughness at, I don't know, 0.25. Seems like okay for paint. Maybe it's a little bit polished, but should be okay. And then we can duplicate this. We can do blue. There you go. So we have red, blue, and orange. Okay. Red, blue, and orange. Cool. All right. So we'll call this red. Okay. So let's do blue. Let's make our blue color. And that's going to be like a baby blue kind of. Okay, cool. Now let's set our masks. So for orange, we're just gonna have probably just one little panel, I guess. There's our orange for now. And then for blue, we're gonna want a couple different things. So we're gonna do this. I'm adding more blue now. All right, and then, yeah, so blue's gonna come here too. So we've been adding layers like this. Now I'm gonna add a little something different. We're gonna add some detail so that it looks like it's paint. And I'll set that up before I do the painting so you can kind of see. Or maybe I'll just do a little bit first. Okay, cool. So now I'm gonna actually like paint this as if I'm spray painting. I'll turn mirror on. So that's on both sides, as you can see. And then I'm actually just gonna like, as if I'm airbrushing this, okay? So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna come in here. And I won't finish so you can see, but so I'm painting all of this and then this, and I'll do some more in a sec. So let's say I do this, okay? So here's my little paint job. I'm gonna add some stuff to this to help me make this look like a spray paint look. So check it out. We'll do a fill layer and I'll do Gaussian spots. Gaussian spots. Gaussian spots 2 probably be good. Is that this one? No, 2, yeah. So more speckles, right? And then UV projection's probably fine for this. We want this to be tiny though. Balance is gonna be like 9.5. Scale, there we go. See this tiny spots everywhere? It's gonna look like, you know, like spray paint on the edges. Now, if I set this blend mode to soft light, see what you see? The gradients become speckled, see? And now that this is set up though, I can, like, you can literally just come in here and spray paint more. It's pretty cool, right? See, it's pretty cool. I like doing that. All right, and then you can even clamp this. So like if I set a levels, you could kind of improve the look a little bit even. So if I brought in the white, I could bring it to, I don't know, 0.9. See what I mean? It gets a little bit more full, feels a little bit more opaque. And then, you know, you could do, there's a brush I really like called Smooth Noisy. That's what I use when I actually just want to fade stuff. So then it just is like just dots, you know, now because of how it's set up. It just looks like dots. I was trying to make it look a little interesting, you know. Next, what I'm going to talk about is this sort of advanced anchor setup. Advanced. Really, I'm just saying that because it's going to get a little tricky, but this is probably not that advanced. You're going to see after this, you're going to see this a lot. So when I'm texturing, I use anchors a lot, and I use this new filter called Bevel Smooth a lot, and so we're going to be using that quite a bit. So what I want to do, I want to create a single layer that lets me, with my brush, paint where paint chips happen. And then I can add even a filter on there, and then that's going to cause paint chips, okay? Essentially a simple black and white mask that is creating complex paint chipping effects that have like an uneven height, that have primer, that has an irregular chipped edge. But all I'm doing is just with gradients and with a brush and with generators saying where that stuff goes, okay? And so to do that, we can use anchors. That's gonna drive things and use it as references. That we're gonna create that layer that's meant to drive that effect, okay? And you'll see if you're new to this, you'll see as we set it up. And I'll try to name everything accordingly so that you can follow along. And you set this up, really fun. There's a million ways to use this kind of thing, but I think this is a great way to show it. Okay, so now I'm gonna create a new paint layer. We want that to be in the folder, which is always very confusing. There you go, in the folder. And we'll name this new paint layer, because we usually use fill layers. This is just gonna be called our paint mask control. All right, now this layer is just gonna be used to drive everything above, because we're gonna use anchors now instead. For this paint mask control, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a black mask, and now I'm gonna move this paint layer to below. Remember, this paint layer we made before, we put it on the folder up here to show where paint goes, right? But we want to drive this with an anchor so we can do all kinds of effects. And the way that anchors work is they have to be below everything that references it. I can only reference things that are layered below me. That's why I'm putting this paint mask control at the bottom. Now I'm going to add an anchor point, and that makes this new paint mask control mask. Okay, that's confusing, but hey, it's okay. So now I'm going to add a fill layer, back to that paint folder because it doesn't have one anymore. But if I go in here and I select my newly created anchor point, I'll have the same result as before. But the difference is this mask is now being driven by this, as you can see, right? If I paint down here, it removes it from up there. Okay, so now we have a working anchor point setup. So let's start removing the paint now, which again, right? I'm actually editing the the folder of paint, because this is my anchor. So anchor result. So now let's add some more cool stuff to this. Everything has to be underneath this anchor, this little anchor thing. So let's add a curvature. Drag that down below, and then we're gonna set this then to multiply. And why don't we highlight this so we can see? All right, global invert true, because we just want to remove the edges, don't we? And then mode, open this up, mode edges, that's good. Global balance, 0.9, let's get way up there, yeah. And then sharp 1, always 1, love some sharp, 0.52, something like that. And then soft, maybe 0.3, something like that. And then let's get rid of these guys. There you go. All right, and then let's add some more breakup. Let's use a texture. We learn some more about our curvature generator, which again, I use it all the time with all kinds of stuff. So get used to this. Here, we'll use a texture. Texture opacity, we want that to be 1. And then let's do the image input right here. Let's do grunge concrete. Yeah, grunge concrete burnt. And then contrast, let's get that up there. And then, yeah. So that's before and that's after. And then how are we looking? I'll back this off a little bit. We don't want the faces gone yet, but here you go, yeah. And then let's get some more. Let's do more. Let's add a, metal edge wear. That'd be good. Yeah, metal edge wear. Metal edge wear. There you go. We'll drag that right into our stack right above curvature. And we're going to set that to multiply too. And then let's do some stuff here. So global invert true again. And then wear level, a little bit more. Wear contrast, fine. Grunge amount, 0.3, fine. Grunge scale, 4, good. Smoothness, 1, that's all right. AO masking, 0.5, okay. Okay, good. So we got a little bit more crispiness there. Look at that, we got some more detail now. So we're good for now. Let's keep going. Okay, now we're gonna add some complexity here. Instead of our anchor just driving one folder, we're gonna use that anchor. We're gonna drive a couple different things now, so that we can offset them and mix them together. So let's follow here. We're gonna make our primer that we just made. We'll have that be driven by our mask. Here's our new primer, right? So let's add a mask here, and then we're gonna add a fill, and we're gonna choose our anchor. Then we're gonna add a mask to our colors. I'm gonna add a fill, and we'll use our mask. So if we turn, I wonder if we can just remove the whole folder. So now if we remove the mask from the folder, what do we got? There we go. So now if you see what we got here, I think I'll just set this to pass through on all channels. So now our folder for paint is literally a container. Now we have colors and primer being driven by this paint mask control. Make sense? Here, I'll make this red so you can see like, or maybe can I make it orange again? So it's like, yeah, look at that. It looks like an anchor. Look at that. Oh, such organization, such color coding. So now we have a similar result, right? But now we can start getting freaky with it. We can start getting jiggy with it now, okay? So let's offset some stuff with the paint color so you can actually see the primer, because right now they're the exact same mask, right? So just want you to know what this is. All right, so for the paint colors here, we're gonna add my favorite new filter, Bevel Smooth. If we just filter everything you can see here, right here, Bevel Smooth looks like that. I use this a lot. This is somewhat new, so I don't know what I was doing before, but anyways, I use this all the time now. So I'll do 0.0095, sure. And then smoothing, we'll make that 0. Curve offsets, we're gonna do negative 0.15. Curve shape, we'll do -1. Mask threshold, we'll do 2.17. And now look at that, what's happening now? We're offsetting it, and now we're seeing the primer poke through, you know? All right, so there's that. Then let's do a warp filter so it's not just a, you know, like an extrude, it's actually different. So we'll add a filter, and then we'll do a warp. There you go, warp. All right, intensity, we'll do pretty low. And then blur, pretty high. See, now we're getting thicks and thins. You see that? Before it's like uniform, and now it's a little different. And then let's do a sharpen on this. All right, so we've got our edge wear. Now let's add more. Now we're gonna do another primer because it's cool, that's why. We'll add a new fill layer called light primer. We're so smart. Light primer. So this one gonna be lighter. Let's do, and then let's see here. Roughness 0.6 again, same dealio. All right, and then I guess both of these, just to be safe, I'm gonna do metal 0, just because they might be probably fine, but just in case we need to override the metal below. Why not? Okay, so let's create a black mask on this one, and then we're gonna fill it with the anchor again, and then we're gonna start doing some stuff again. So let's go back to our stash here. Good old Bevel Smooth. And then we'll do out, we'll do distance 0.01, that's good. Smoothing 1.75. Let's offset the curve that away. -0.78 is what I'm doing. Curve shape -1, and then mask threshold, we'll do 0.43. All right, and then we'll do a warp filter on this one too. So we'll do a warp filter here on this. And then intensity, let's do 0.25. And then let's see, source blur 1. Let's go crazy. Source balance 0.75 and tiling 5. Distance 0.01. Oh, 0.01. So look at that. We got some pretty cool interest now, don't we? I don't know, pretty cool. All right, and then what we're gonna do here, we got some warping, and now we're gonna do on the light primer, we're gonna introduce another new node that's pretty useful, and that's quantize. That's gonna let you set, it's kind of like, what do they call it in Photoshop? Can't remember. But essentially, you know, you turn it into, like right now, I set this to 3, and it'll just turn it into 3 colors. So there you go. Let's see, what's this looking like? Might need to put a filter, sharpen on there too, but looks like paint that's worn away. Cool. And then now what's cool though is we got some complicated edges, and we can edit this stuff. Watch. So I can come in here, and then this is the paint mask control layer, remember? So I can, I'll say this is like, I don't know, regions, okay? And then I can add a paint to this, and then just freestyle, right? I can say, you know what? Storytelling hat on, right? I can say, well, it's not gonna get worn too bad. So we can like come in here and just say, you know what? It's gonna be okay right here, and it'll be okay right here. So I'm picking and choosing where I want the wear to be and come back and go away and stuff like that. So these two, like maybe these two little things next to each other, they don't wear that much. All right, like around here, it doesn't wear that much. Around here, it doesn't wear that much. And then I can also, I should be able to, so you can see I can actually come in here and remove the paint. I'm gonna say it burns in here, you know, so I'm gonna remove all the paint from there. But if you see, like, it keeps my edits so that I don't ever have just a you know, a stroke. It still kind of looks like paint chipping. See what I mean? And if I get, and the more gradients I get, the better. I'll come in here and I'll do my smooth noisy brush, which I use a lot. I can add some paint back. See, I'm just getting primer now, and I keep going because of the gradients. Now I'm getting the paint back. See that? And I'm getting that nuance. And then I can say maybe here, I'll just bring back some. So I can actually like watch this line get thinner. It'll start filling in with primer. Same thing right here, like maybe don't want that. All right, so you can just do this till the cows come home, as they say. And then also, is this separate? I don't like that part coming back, so. All right, anyways, so that's our paint layer on top, right? And then again, like with the metal edge wear, we could get some more stuff. Maybe get some more random things like this, you know, little pops here and there. Alrighty, okay, cool. So that's how this paint control thing works. Now let's keep adding more nuance to our paint texturing. Let's add dirt and wear at the top, okay? Let's start adding dirt, and we're gonna add dirt to our paint colors. We're actually just gonna add more dirt. We're gonna add stuff in here. So let's do a new one called dirt, and then we'll do kind of a yellowish, brownish color. Roughness, more roughness, 0.7. All right, and then we'll create a black mask on the dirt. And then let's check this out. Let's do kind of generator. That's cool that you can use in your stuff called tile generator. There you go. It looks like this with the grids. And then with this, you can do all kinds of custom stuff. So I can say, we're going to do type custom image input. So we're going to tile a custom image. And right here for the image pattern, we're going to use an image that we have called dirt stain large. Okay. So there you go. You can see it's tiling now. And then we have all kinds of controls. So I am going to change this resolution. I don't know if this really does anything, but that would suck if it does. So I'm just doing it. And then let's see, we'll do over here. Let's do hardness. Are we good? This hardness, shape. That's fine. Maybe less hard. I don't know. All right, so let's do a bunch of random stuff. That's why this is cool. So we'll do random rotation. We'll do symmetry random, rotation random again, and then scale. It's our scale here. It's going to size. I can just type in 6, even though I can't scale it. I can type it in. See what I mean? So yeah, now we use this image. You could do whatever image you want. You can imagine a ton of ways you could use this thing. But like, you know, by using this source, now we're getting all this. So yeah, we got a bunch of random stuff on here. Here you go. And then we'll add a filter. Add our sharpen, trusty sharpen, make it look nicer. And then we might need to make this, or we could make it just not that opaque. If we made it kind of, maybe we make it less hard. Should be down here in the image input. So we're definitely getting a little muddy now. And then I'm thinking, all right, we're gonna overcrank this, call it a day, and move on. Let's go to 8. All right, we'll say that's good for now. We're gonna add more and more dirt to this too. So we're just trying to make the paint look a little messed up. All right, so yeah, that's that. Now let's add another one and see how they mix together. Let's do one called stains. Okay. So that was tile generator. Now let's do another kind of warmish middle tone. And this one we'll call, well, this one will actually do multiply for sure. Do base color multiply. And then we'll set the roughness to 0.5. Again, roughness variation. You always want a bunch of detail in your roughness. Okay, and then we'll add a black mask. Let's do another smart mask. Let's do smart mask. We've got something called dust stain. Drag that on there. All right, and then texture scale, we're gonna want to change that. Let's do texture scale. We're gonna change this. We're gonna make this 1. That is our stains. Let's see, what's it looking like? And then always, by the way, you know, you can come in here for your seed, you know, for whatever's driving your thing. I'm not sure what, maybe it's this one. Whichever one, you can click it and it'll update the random thing. So if you don't like the random shapes that are coming out, you can click it a few times until it just re-rolls the dice, if you know what I mean. Let's do more. We'll do shiny stains now. So this one's going to be a lot more targeted for the roughness. Let's do shiny stains. You can see, similar to the other materials we've been doing, layering things up, right? Over and over and over again. Here we're going to do up there, and then we're going to do base color multiply again. And then we're going to do roughness. Here's where this one happens. This is where the magic happens on this one. It's 0.1. So pretty shiny. All right. And then we're going to add a black mask to this one. You can see the same things over and over, right? This is it. All right. Then we'll do a fill and we'll add a grunge map. Come over here. I'm going to type in, this one's called grunge map 07, 007. Okay. Again, let's take a look at the mask as we build it. So this is that. Tiling, we're going to do 4. And that's on each piece. You know, you could do the fit match per tile. You could do triplanar and it would go across everything. So yeah, it's whatever you prefer. I could keep triplanar for now. It'll look more like it's on the whole helmet. All right, so then balance, we'll do 0.41. And then it's looking a little sweatier, a little grimier, right? Oh, what happened here? Oh, we need to turn these other things on, dude, so it doesn't look crazy. And then maybe the inside of the helmet, I'll make just plastic just so that we don't have to stare at this thing the whole time. Back to our paint. So that was our shiny stains. Okay, so we got some stains and they're shiny. Now we're gonna do more actual just roughness variation. Let's just call that roughness variation. Okay, and then roughness, we're just gonna crank it to 1. Don't normally do this, folks. Here, I'll just do it to 0.9 just to not break my own rule. You don't really, nothing's ever fully 1. And then we'll add a black mask, and then we'll do some more noise. Let's go fill, and then Perlin noise. Let's do the 3D Perlin noise, and then we'll do fit match per tile. And then for contrast, we'll do 0.16, scale we'll do 30, and then distortion intensity, we'll do 0.35 for that. And then layer opacity, and that's gonna be in the roughness, don't you know? So in the actual roughness channel, why don't we do it in the mask? We'll do it in the mask. In the mask, we'll lower this opacity a little bit. And then we're going to add more stuff. Let's do fingerprints. That's fun. We'll do fill. We'll use it again on glass probably. But we'll do fingerprints. Smeared is a good one, right? And there's a bunch of these. Grunge fingerprints smeared, sure. Okay. And then we'll do triplanar projection for this one. And for tiling, maybe 4. Balance, go a little bit up, but then we'll make this overlay. So now we're doing blend modes on the freaking blend modes. Yeah, look at that. Now there's blend modes in the mask. It's not even, you know, it's crazy. And then for this, we could also change the opacity for this one if we want to. So do we want it to just mix a little bit? Again, this is for roughness. So can you even see it is the question. A little bit, right? So here, we'll jump in to our renderer so we can take a look. In fact, let's do, you know, we've been using this soft white so we can see, but let's get an actual HDRI in here with some nuance. Okay, so here you go. So now you can see with the glancing angles and stuff, we just got a lot more stuff going on. Okay, so things are feeling less flat and they got more dimension and stuff. And that's good. Now let's create a new layer just to add some edge discoloration on our paint. Now again, this is in that category of like looking fancy, you know, just to separate the elements more, make it more readable, almost like a burnt paper edge. So that's not necessarily realistic, depends on how the wear is happening, but it's another way we can emphasize the shape. So let's do that now. We're going to create a new fill layer for our paint and we're going to call it edges, and then we're going to do multiply here. What do we got here? Multiply. Oops, that's supposed to be in the base color. We got to do that. Multiply. All right, and then we're going to do, I guess, a little bit less opacity. Let's add our black mask to this, and then we'll do curvature, and let's do some of these settings. So global blur, I don't know, we'll see. Balance 0.3, contrast a little bit, and then we're gonna do mode as edges, sharp 1 always, soft, that's good, medium, that's fine. So now we have these edges getting darker. Okay, so it kind of like gets darker as it gets closer to the metal and helps pop it out a little bit. Okay, little nuance. Okay, let's do another layer. This one we'll call dust. And then we'll add a black mask. And then we'll just do grunge dusty scratch. There you go. And we'll just call that a day. What do you think about that? It's a little blurry though, I guess. It's a little blurry, I guess. Match. That didn't really help, did it? Tiling them out. And then probably should sharpen it too. It's kind of low res. Okay, we're gonna just flip this random seed a little bit till we like it. This seems better. All right, there we go. Now we're cooking this up. Pretty good. What do you think? Pretty good? Looking like a dirty helmet. All right, now the finishing touch, some edge detail. All right, this is gonna help this look more like paint. And once we get this too, I'll show you. You can play around. You can do a million things with this. But here's kind of the last piece of the puzzle here, and this is a pretty cool thing too. So check this out. We're gonna do our edge detail now. So we need to create a new fill layer at the very top of the folder of our thing called paint edges. All right, so probably in paint colors, right? Let's do it at the very top here. We'll just call this paint edges. All right, we'll keep the BC like that. And then the height, we'll do 0.1 or we'll do 0.02 so we can see for now. And then the opacity, we'll keep, and then here we go, add a black mask. Let's get our anchor, our magic anchor. And then let's see what we're doing. Now we're gonna do a mask outline. So we're gonna go filter, mask outline, and we're gonna change it to, we got outside, threshold, we're gonna go 0. Width, we'll do 0.03. Blur, 0. Curve shape, something like -6.5 or something like that. All right, let's keep this like this for now. This paint layer below is too harsh, so maybe we need to do our corrections later. Let's get this set up so we can see what it looks like. All right, so we got negative there, and then let's see what it's looking like right now. We'll probably set this to replace on everything, and then choose this one, paint colors mask. Now we got to do something else to make this work right. So we're gonna do, let's see. So we need to do, what's this doing? Okay, like that. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, so we need to do width like that. Okay, like that. Maybe do a little blur, I suppose. And then we need to make this cleaner. We need to add another fill layer and choose that same anchor point. Get my anchor again. Can I set it to multiply? Okay, so that's gonna remove it. Does that make sense? Here, watch, I'll show you the mask. So here's my paint colors anchor. I just write an anchor here on all my paint colors. So that's everything except my primer, because I just want to peel the paint up, right? So then I'm with this layer that's just gonna be the edges, the height. I have in my fill layer my paint colors anchor. So now it's just gonna be the same as this mask, right? Now I'm gonna use this mask outline to create this shape, and we can even blur it some more, and we could do some interesting stuff, I suppose. And this threshold's gonna let me like move it. Here is the same thing again. You see paint colors mask, and I'm setting it to multiply. That stamps out the middle. So now you just have this in between. See what I mean? Now we're just gonna have this kind of edge. So I'm gonna do a warp. We'll play with this some more. I might just use bevel smooth, honestly. I love bevel smooth. But let's do warp just to get this all set up. We just want like an irregular edge here, so we're just gonna do something kind of subtle. We'll do source blur, and then we'll do some tiling, and then the intensity, and then we'll do a little blur here. These are both gonna go above whatever that ends up being. Not having the best luck with the outline, so we'll see. And then the blur, we'll just do 0.1, just take the edge off of it. And then this doesn't have to be that. Okay, so here is it with the mask outline. So now again, without the punch out on top, right, the negative, it loses the sharpness, which is okay because we're blurring the edge. We're trying to get it to curl up. Then we punch it back out. It should look like it's kind of peeling up. Does that make sense? And then the warp is what gets us to like lose it, so that matches it perfect. But now with our little warp, we can kind of have it just be a little bit different. Kind of looks like it's curling up at different places, you know what I'm saying? Give it some more unevenness. Okay, and then maybe like, what if we blurred it a lot? Yeah, see, that's like no blur at all. And then we can just kind of fading a little bit. Let's see if I can get this to come more. So width is 0.1. Can I? Yeah, it's the most I can do. Okay, probably something like this. And then I'm going to lower the height to be pretty subtle. Or maybe I make it, if I keep it big and then with the threshold, I make it so it's just the big shapes. That's probably the best way to do it. Get a little bit of the holes and then, yeah, we'll do 0.03, I guess, or something like that. All right, so let's see what we got cooking here. And then now we have like everything open to us too. We can go back on the shiny parts and everything. I won't now because I will just keep adding stuff. But yeah, we're cooking now. Let's see with the render. Okay, so we're getting some nuance in these areas. There you go. And then we can mess around with adding paint back in there and stuff. Maybe we even make the edges more rough if we want. I know we have in our metal, we have our shiny metal. I wonder if we invert that. Let's do curvature weight. Here we go. That way our shininess, not so much contrast. We have contrast with the paint already, so I just want irregularity with the metal. So I think that feels better. We're cooking now. Okay, so now we have our paint set up. We've got our paint edges and colors and primer. We'll keep going, but you could, paint in and out of all these different layers. You could add paint back here. Maybe I could show that. So everything's being driven by this, right? Here's that paint layer back if we add it. Okay, so I can say like in this area, you can like very much with like a spot fix it, say like, where doesn't happen right here. So we should get rid of it. And then maybe there's even a way to show. So like, yeah, maybe I think it'd be cooler too with something with like more opacity and then I'll do with my flow here. Come in here, we'll add nuance just by coming and adding some more back in here, right? Like we'll just say it doesn't get worn here as much, in the corner. Okay, so we're getting some stuff back there. Here we'll just say, okay, it gets worn there, sure. Catch some edges, And then, but maybe right here, it doesn't so much. Just by painting in and out, we can have a little bit more control. Maybe we wear it a lot right there, but then maybe right here, we'll bring it back in the middle. So I'm just using the sandpaper brush because I can vary the pressure and also it's got a pattern to it. So it's adding just more detail for this thing to pick up because we have all those layers on top. We've got some bevel smooths and some, because everything's picking up from this anchor point. So it's a little laggy to paint, but all that complicated stuff is happening with the primer offsets and everything too. So as I paint, primer starts to come back. The more I paint, the other primer and then the paint and everything has these irregular edges and warps and stuff like that. So I can really just control where, I think the wear should be, and then I could bring it back in some other areas. And yeah, there you go. So I'm, getting a real complexity here. Like I don't think it should wear here. So I'll just come in here and I'll just add a bunch back here. And then we still have that global control. Remember underneath this paint layer is a generator and a curvature, and we could reduce the balance. So there's like these few knobs, if you know where to look, where you can just make these big global changes. And that's ultimately why, this workflow is so powerful. All right. So there you go with the paint. Now I want to talk about texturing, kind of metal coatings. There's times where you're doing certain kind of sci-fi weapons or armor and stuff, and you want to do these black things that are hard surface metallic type things. So we're going to do sort of a fake coating. And to do that, we're going to take a look and use an example, this little flashlight piece on this helmet. All right, so to start, we're going to create a new folder for a material we don't have yet. And we'll call this coating, and we'll keep the little system we have going on by choosing a new color. Okay, and then inside our coating folder, we'll make a new fill layer. We'll just call it base coating, keep it going. And then let's see, we'll do something dark like this. And now with the coating, we're gonna break PBR a little bit. We're gonna do some roughness. And then for metallic, I'm actually not gonna do full black or full metallic. I'm gonna do kind of in the middle. So I'm gonna do something like 0.6. So this isn't true PBR, but this is a way that we can make things look like there's like metallic in the flakes or metallic paint or something, that it's not 100% there, and it could keep this looking hard surface. All right, so now we're going to make a mask for our coating layer. And actually, we should probably set our folder. Remember, we're doing our layer blending, you know, our good practice here. The way I'm using folders and everything, I know that I want my folder to be passed through for everything. All right, we're gonna keep it. For our base, we're gonna keep this. We'll keep it passed through. Let's do a paint layer. So we'll do black mask on our coding folder. We'll go to paint. And then we're going to select some of this stuff. So we're going to do the whole light piece for sure. We'll do this thing. And then maybe while we're at it, we'll do this. And then this guy, maybe the UV. There we go. We'll do that. Maybe this guy we can do. And then, I don't know, anything in here maybe. I'll just do this for now. So we got 3 things going on right now. And then this, because this could be kind of metallic. And maybe this one. So I got even more stuff going on. Okay, let's work on this now. All right, so we are gonna do curvature. Yeah, let's do a curvature on the coating. So on our mask, we're gonna do curvature. All right, and we're gonna set that to multiply. And then let's open up our curvature settings. Here we go again. Global invert, true. Because again, let's just check a look at the mask, right? We're just gonna wear away the edges. Right, global blur 0, balance 0.5 is fine, contrast 0.5, and then for the curvature stuff we want sharp. Yeah, we're gonna do edges, fine, we're gonna do 0.4 something, soft, let's go less than that, and then medium even less than that. It's often like a stair step usually. Okay, we'll get rid of this stuff. There you go, so it's a little tighter. Okay, and then maybe we'll add a little blur to this. Try to integrate it a little bit more. And then we'll do a grunge. Let's add fill. And we'll do grunge dirt scratchy. That's a good one right here. Scratchy, yeah, like this one. Yeah. All right, and then for tiling, we'll get it tinier. Something like that's pretty good. Balance, maybe down here we go. And then contrast. And then we'll set this to overlay. This is gonna help give us some detail in those gradients. There you go. And then we'll do even more stuff. You'll see, this is how I build up a lot of masks. You can see the repeated patterns here, right? Let's do grunge scratches rough. Where's this one? Grunge scratches. Okay, and then again, multiply. And then we need to change this to be a lot smaller, obviously, right? So tiling 2. Global invert, and then Sarah balance, contrast, give it a little bit of contrast, scratches tiling, we want tiling more, scratches dirtiness. Let's see, for our dirtiness, we'll go all the way 1. Double scratch, we'll go 1. Scratch spots intensity, I don't like that much. That's kind of like the noisiness in there. And then dust intensity, no. So there you go, now we got some chips. So if I show you here we go. So it's still a little blurry, and that's where we can do something else. But let's keep going right now. So we're gonna create a new. Okay, so this is blurry, right? So to get us the look we want, let's use threshold. You guys might be familiar with threshold from Photoshop, but it's gonna crunch it. Makes it more binary, you see? And then we'll just do point. I mean, you can just see what you want, really. See, this helps it look like it's a coating that just got messed up. And then maybe this, I like the blur a little bit much though, but okay. And then threshold really lets us like say how much is dinged up or not, you know? And then for scratches, I wonder if we can just add a lot more. That's pretty good like that. Just little dings here and there. Cool, I think it's okay. All right, now in our folder, let's add some more detail to this coating. Okay, so we've got something, probably seen things like that to get worn. Okay, now in our coating later, we have our base coating. Let's add some more stuff. Let's add a fill layer, and we'll call this flakes. All right, and then now let's do some height in here. We'll do 0.02, and then let's add a black mask on here, and then we'll just view this mask. We're gonna do a fill called gradient flakes. Okay, gradient flakes. There we go. And then let's see, we'll do this a triplanar projection so that it's the same size across these different panels, or else it wouldn't because the UVs aren't uniform. Tiling, we can make that really tiny here. And then even the pattern amount, we're gonna go a lot. And then the range, I don't know, 0.2. All right, and then a sharpen filter. filter, sharpen. All right, so now we got it nice and noisy. So let's add some more stuff. Let's do, it's kind of a lot. Let's lower this height. Thinking whether or not I want this paint stuff to come through or not. I'm guessing not. Although I could like lower the opacity a little bit. Yeah, you get a little bit of something maybe. So we got that, and then we'll do a new fill layer called grunge. All right. And then for the BC, that's fine. Opacity, we're gonna do pretty low opacity. And then roughness, 0.6. Cool. And then we'll add a black mask. And then we'll do our grunge painted. Let's go like that. All right, boy. Grunge. Sorry, grunge paint scratched, isn't it? Yeah. This is an awesome one. All right, tiling. Let's do triplanar again. And then do tiling. That's good. And then let's see, contrast. Let's bring that up. And then we'll do a sharpen too. Really ties the room together, doesn't it? Always, always. All right, so there you go. And then you can add or remove any of the wear here. We can take a look at our other, we added this in a couple of places, then we added it right here, we added it right here. Maybe I should scale it more because it's getting a little blurry in some areas, but I liked it on the light, but that's fine. So there you go. Jump into our renderer so we can see some nice rendering. I do think we lost some of the height, so maybe we gotta bump that up a little bit. Let's go to our flakes, and then maybe we just jump this to 50. I mean, the overall, I feel like the overall height should even, there we go. Feels like I should even get an edge for the wear, you know, just the little dings there. I think it looks a little better when it's more complicated than just those smooth lines. So yeah, there we go. Now I think this is looking better. All right, there we go. So we've got a new material on here for our coating. All right, things are coming along now. So yeah, we got this new coating material. You can put that on whatever you want. All right, so that's pretty good so far with these man-made materials. Let's continue with leather. So leather, really common material and used on a lot of characters, both fantasy and sci-fi. It's organic, and in this helmet, it's our first, maybe only, organic material because it is skin. And so I'm gonna show you a way that you can make leather. And again, you can go so many different places from here. And I could honestly talk for like an hour about leather. So we're gonna do a simple leather setup. Just wanna outline the pieces, right? It's gonna be similar to the paint in that I'm gonna do a bottom base layer of raw leather. So we'll build a raw leather that's essentially just like a, noisy, rough surface. Then we'll do the leather skin topping, and then we can punch holes and do wear and tear that way to reveal the raw leather, in between. On top of that, we'll do some kind of wear and dirt, roughness variations and everything. Leather skin pattern will be a part of that. And then we'll do kind of stitching at the top. Okay, so those are the basic components, and I'll show you some more blend modes and layer effects, and we'll use one of the materials and substance too. Okay, so let's build it and make some leather. All right, so this is where we were left before. It's our paint. We've got our coating. Let's just close everything up and let's open our leather. All right, so for our leather, let's start. We need to make our leather raw. So we're gonna start to make this a little bit more complicated as we do, because this is just our blockout. So we actually want a folder in there called raw. Okay, so let's make a folder called leather raw, and inside there we're gonna do a base. And now in this base we'll set it to something like that. Let's see, something like this. That's pretty good. A little bit brighter maybe. Okay, and then for the roughness, it's gonna be kind of a rough grain leather, And now we'll do we'll take a look. We'll do most of our demo on here, why don't we? And then we'll do a new fill layer on here, and we'll call it grain. And then, is this good? Yeah, it's pretty good. And then we'll take this light gray, and then we'll set it for the blend mode and base color. We'll set it to divide. Kind of makes it bright, a little more saturated. And then for height, we'll add some height to this grain too. Okay, now we'll add a black mask, and then we'll add a new fill. We'll search from our assets. I'll show you. We'll do black and white. What do they call it? B and W spots. Okay, B and W spots 2. That's what we'll use for our grain. Let's drag that in there. There we go. Let's see. Contrast. We'll bring that up a bit. Scale. And we'll do a sharpen on that too. Sharpen, okay. So that's pretty raw, don't you think? That height's kind of crazy though. Yeah, let's just eyeball this. Let me get something like that. And then for our B&W spots, okay, there's our raw leather. Okay, it's fine. Again, you could do this stuff forever. Now, outside of this raw leather, we're gonna make a new fill layer. And we're gonna add one of the materials they have here. They call it leather skin, don't we? Look at that, perfect. So we're gonna add our leather skin above raw. All right, we'll let this guy load. There you go. And I like using these materials whenever I can because you get a lot of detail for free. We have 3 colors here. They're not exactly what I want. You could do a hue saturation, but why don't we just choose 3 different colors? So we'll go a little bit more yellow warm for me. And then for the tipped color, we're gonna make that darker. Again, just more yellow. Let's do like this. And then for the patina color, this might be a little bit too different from each other. I don't want that much contrast, you know. Just 3 subtly different things I think would be good. Fine, I suppose. Okay, leather skin. Okay, let's change the height range now. It's a little bit too much height detail, I think. So we're gonna go way lower. It's at 0.05 now. We're gonna go to 0.01 now. And then we do need to set the blend in the height mode to replace. There we go. Now you can see, look, pretty nice, right? You get this detail. It's great. It's great. Still, I feel like is it the tipped color? Is that what's the dark spots? Yeah. All right, now let's add a black mask to this leather skin. And we'll use metal edgeware, one of our favorites. Generator, metal edgeware. Okay, invert, true. And you can see we want more contrast in here. Now you saw, like in this case, doing all 3. I'll just show you how you can add a filter. And I did that to the layer itself. And I'll come in here and there's hue saturation levels, or is it HLS? HSL, yeah, that's what I typed, silly. Okay, and then you see I have only color selected. And so now I can darken this. And I can change the temperature too, although I like the color temperature, so I'm gonna leave it. But you see I'm just affecting all the whole base color now with that. All right, back to my metal edgeware mask. So grunge amount, we're gonna do 0.4. All right, and then let me show you this too. So this is a generator, right? But let's add a paint layer here. And I'll just grab the leather brush. Right here, you can see right here, right? So now I've got this leather brush and I'll just try to paint some cracks here. I don't think the size would be good to have right here. There you go. Maybe that's a little bit big. There we go. So now I'm just painting it. Maybe flow would be better to have. Let's try it with flow. There we go. Yeah. See that? So now I'm wearing where I want it, but I'm using a leather brush. So now it looks all leathery, right? Wow. All right. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there like that. We did it on the bend point. So that's that paint layer, and then we'll do a threshold, which will help that sharpness. Here we go. And then the threshold, let's get it up there. So that's it with that. Oh, you can see here the raw is actually, looks like it's poking out more, doesn't it? So I think for the leather skin, to fix that, because we have height on the raw too, we've got height here. So this will come up sometime. So this is your height range. I lowered the height range, right? Still, I can bring it back though, because I'm cool like that. You see it's popping up, right? But height position is what we can use to raise where the base level is. So if I pop it out more, I can have it start at a higher position than leather raw. Okay, so height position, something like it's kind of what's gonna right now dictate kind of how thick this leather skin is. So got to be careful with that, but I think that looks pretty good. So we'll leave this for now. You'll see we can come back to these layers. Remember, non-destructive. Let's continue on. We'll get all the pieces set up. So that's that. Let's do some staining. Let's create a new fill layer and we'll just call that stain. And then the base color will be set to multiply. And let's get a color here. Let's do something with a little bit of color. All right. And then roughness, we'll do 0.3. That's good. Okay, black mask. Let's get some clouds. Clouds too. And then balance, we'll do 3.3. And then contrast, to get some contrast going. Show you the mask. All right. And then scale, we'll leave at 1. Okay, let's get some more stuff going. Let's do grunge, dirt, scratchy, always. Okay, and then we'll do, that needs to be set to multiply on our mask. It's gonna remove some stuff here. We're gonna set the invert to true. That way we just got these little flecks in there. Balance, we'll do 6, 4, something like that, a little bit more. And then contrast, we'll do a little bit too. Back on our leather skin, we're going to add an anchor. So now we've got an anchor for our leather skin. Remember, we have our wear on there, don't we? Because it's showing the raw beneath, but we have our paint, we have our metal edge wear procedural thing, our little threshold. So that's going to be our leather skin mask. So now on the stain, we can fill and we can add that anchor, and then we can set it to multiply. And so now the staining is only on the skin part. Yeah, just one of the other many ways to use. So now we've got color variation and everything going on. Things are looking a little bit more complicated, and that's good. Although this metal edge wear, I feel like it's a lot. But anyways. Okay, let's continue on. So let's do some more cracks. All right, let's create another fill layer called cracks. All right, cracks. And then we're going to set the base color blend mode to soft light this time. Let's do soft light. Where you at? And then for the color, do a little color again. Something like that. We'll go all the way bright. Yep. And then height, we're actually going to go negative. And then roughness, we're going to go pretty high. Okay, we're going to do black mask. And then we're going to fill this with leather damaged, it's called. This one. Okay, so you can see we're getting something. Okay, and then let's see. We need to tile this a little bit less. We need this to be big. All right, and then balance, it's going to be 0.34. We're going to drop it a little bit. And then we're going to blur it a little bit. Add a blur. And then the blur is going to be small though, 0.3. All right, and then now our handy dandy, my favorite, the bevel smooth. Bevel smooth. All right, now what I'm going to do here, we're going to get some nice like soft cracking. So there's just more ways you can use all these filters and stuff. So if I change my distance to something low, and then smoothing, offset my curve, and then my shape and mask threshold 224. Okay, then we can add a sharpen to make this more crispy. And I'm gonna crank this. I'm gonna do sharpen 4. Ever seen that before? Look at that. Ooh, looks like rivers, dude. Look at some real cracks. But it doesn't really look how we want yet, huh? We need to invert this. So let's do it. And then invert. And then with our bevel smooth, you know, with the smoothing, it changes the shape. Everything's getting laggy now. And then curve shape too. That's like kind of the gap that fills it up. Yeah, this makes it softer. Is upping the curve shape. Gotta drop this down. Maybe 4 is a little too hardcore. Anyways, you see some cracks, right? Looks more like leathery stuff. Can see there. All right. Here's something you can do. Again, you can like mask it in and out. There's a million ways to do it. Okay, so let's do a new fill layer. We're gonna do some edge stuff again. So add a fill layer and we'll call it, and then height. I'll just need height, don't need that. Let's do 0.65, add a black mask, and then we'll fill it with that anchor, right? Where's that? Well, still, let's just do this and see what the fill layer and leather skin mask. Okay, then we're gonna do a bevel. Told you I use bevel smooth a lot, and it's new. What was I doing before? I don't know. Okay, bevel smooth, and then direction we want in. Here, why don't you see what's going on here? I'll show you. We want the edges to curl up again, remember? This time we're using bevel smooth. All right, so that's bevel in, distance, something like 825. This works for me, you know, experiment. 0, and then 0.03, and then 0.24. All right, let's see. 4.3, 0.08, oh, 0.08. Smoothing feels like kind of a lot, honestly. Let's see what it looks like. All right, now warp filter to make it irregular. That's why we use warp. All right, intensity, yeah, 0.1 is fine. We're gonna blur it a little bit or a lot of it. Again, before and after, right? Just to get some irregularity. Then we're gonna blur this a little bit, and just blur, I don't know, a little bit, something like this. And then we're gonna do the same trick we did before, right? So now we're gonna add a fill. We're gonna add that anchor again. and it's going to be multiply. Let's try to make this feel good now. Let's see. There we go. So the bevel smooth, we gotta leave some of that, you know? But because of that, I wonder, yeah, I think we're just gonna end up lowering this height. That's probably just gonna be how it is. So we got some detail, but not a ton, but it's okay. Here we go. Cool. All right, that's set up. And you can wear this stuff more and more, right? Like if I came down here now, we have this, it's all predicated on this. So, you know, if I came in here and I just started wearing this away, you get that crispy detail. And if we didn't have the threshold, you know, it would, you know, I don't know. It just feels a little bit more fake, right? So if you made it smaller, you can kind of add some noise back in. So it depends. You can edit all this stuff depending on how like noisy or not you want it to be, you know. I'll just add some of that back in there. So yeah, you can just add or remove as you see fit. And instead, if you didn't want it to be too harsh, by the way, right, just to show you. So if I took the threshold off and I did a levels instead, it's not as brutal. Threshold's pretty much binary, right? You could come in here and still add, but have a little bit more of a gradient, you know, if you wanted to come in here with and wear and tear this stuff up, you know, with some level of gradients. So up to you. You have full creative control. That's why Painter's awesome. Yep. Again, a million ways to do everything. All right, last part of this, we're gonna do stitches. So to do that, we're gonna add a new paint layer. We're actually just gonna use one of the tools here too. So I'll add a new paint layer at the top here. We'll just call it stitches. And then if we search down here for stitches, it's this one, top stitch. So the way this will work, this is a curve tool. This is pretty cool. Come in here, and what you'll do is you're gonna start in the corner, and then we're gonna edit the brush settings and it saves it. So like here, let's just do one side right here. Actually, maybe we need to, so I'm just clicking a few times. Again, non-destructive, pretty cool. I can move it. Okay, now while I have it, I'm gonna change some settings, okay? So if we come down here, we'll look at some stitching parameters. There's spacing. You can see they're touching, don't like that. So here's spacing. If we set this to 0.25, see we're getting some spacing now. 0.3, okay, cool. And then I can select the color. Probably don't want it to be white, you know, probably like dark brown, you know, or just maybe just an off-white if it's dirty or whatever. And then also you would pick your size. I think this is kind of okay for this, but let's see if we wanted to pick the size of our stitches. Stroke width, I don't think that's it. Stitches vertical, stitches horizontal. Imperfections, which is really cool. Okay, I'm gonna say, all right, again, I feel like it's too close together, so I'm just gonna make the gap. There we go. All right, and that's what's cool about curves, you know, non-destructive. I can move them around. Really, really great. Okay, so now that we've got this set up, I can come back in here and just select this ribbon thing again, and it'll be, it's the same thing as the brush thing, like double clicking these things just sets all the parameters. All right, there's those two. We'll come over here, we'll do some more. Get those in the right position. A little bit more towards the edge, I guess. So at any time I can select this tool and I can hover over a curve and I can come back and change it. That's what's cool about this. The downside is if I wanted to change the color of these, at least I don't know a way. I mean, it'd be cool if they were like somehow smart about it. I don't know. But if I wanted to change any of those parameters, I'd have to come in here, select the path tool, select the path, and then make changes here. Also, a new paths thing shows up, so I can select every path that I did here. You can see it highlights in blue. And then I'll have to, so really make sure your first stroke has all the settings that you want, really. That's the key there. But yeah, there you go. So now you've got your stuff. And then I assume we can hit replace on all of these, right? No, we can't. I wonder if base color should not be replaced. All right, yeah, well, that's stitches then. Really cool, these things right here. These are kind of new additions too down here at the bottom. Definitely recommend playing with them. But yeah, there you go. So let's see what we got here now with our leather that we made. Okay, again, could go crazy from here, but we got the makings of some leather. Looks like leather from over here. So there you go. We're gonna talk about model details. All right, so this is details. This is texturing that's not just color or roughness. This is stuff in the normal and the height to give it form. So these are some things that maybe could have been modeled in a lot of cases, or Maybe it's easier to do in texturing. So there's several reasons why you do things like this. One is sometimes you're just texturing and you're like, hey, it'd be nice to have some detail here. You know, you just didn't think of it, or you're texturing another asset or whatever. And so it's good to be able to add little details here and there without having to go all the way back to the high poly. And in some cases, it's just easier, more straightforward, non-destructive, as we've been seeing, right? To add model details in texturing. So I want to show you some of that stuff. I think it's awesome to do. And I'm going to do it with kind of 3 categories of doing this. The first one we're going to do is stamping down normals, normal stamps. Super fun. I'll show you how it works in Substance Painter. And then at the end too, I'll even show you how you can pick that stuff up in the generators we've been doing, like curvature and getting dirt in the cracks and stuff. So it'll be just as if you modeled it and baked it that way. All right, so here's how we left our helmet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a new layer now. And the first thing to understand about what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be using anchors. So we've been using anchors in other ways, right? With masks. And if you remember, thing about anchors is it goes bottom up. The best place to put normal stamps is at the bottom because it has to live at the bottom, because that way you can pick it up all the way through. Okay, so let's start stamping down some normals. Okay, so we'll just get any brush here and whatever we'll just do a basic hard brush, and then we can just look for normal stamps, and then we're going to put it in the normal channel here. So if I just type in normal, you see Substance Painter comes with some of these things. And now you can go online and buy, like, you know, packs of this stuff, which is super cool. You know, you can see it comes with these things right here. So we'll just use some of these that are, you know, just free examples, but like you could buy hundreds of these things, you know, and make your own, obviously. So why don't we start with this little doohickey? This seems cool. So we'll drag it in the normal channel. All right, so we can see it. And then we'll stamp it. Now, you may not be able to see this, okay? Obviously, I can see it makes your life easy, right? But this sometimes in your, you know, check your painter, but if you're, you know, maybe you have brush outline cursor by default. I don't know, right? Then you can't see it. So you have to come up here in the upper left, this little, oh man, that looked like that move. Flubber, dude, it looks like Flubber. Anyway, sorry. If you do full preview, it just straight up shows you, which is fantastic, you know, because then you can see what you're doing. And then if I hold control and then I right click, move back and forth, it's scale. And then if I hold control and left click up and down, it's rotate. So we can really see what's going on here, right? So we're just gonna do this. And then look at that. Wow, it's like I'm a great modeler. So why don't we just stamp down a few of these for funsies. Let's see what we got. We could use one of these little vent things, I suppose. Oh, another good thing we do is like screws, right? So what's like a good screw thing here? Is there any kind of like sci-fi looking screw? I don't know. What's this gonna look like? Oh, that's the fading. Up and down is fading, I guess. That looks kind of crazy. Looks kind of like a button now, huh? It's kind of cool. Look, now our screws look crazier, like a ball bearing. I don't know. Is that good? I don't know. Let's do some more. Let's do panels and stuff. Oh, there's another one that's useful. I'll show you this. Watch. So I'm gonna put this over here. We've got this little button, don't we? Need those little thumb things. Don't like that it's cropping. Alpha, get out of here. There we go. No alpha for you. All right, let's get this big enough. There we go. Boom. Wait, what? Did this go twice? I'll get it one of these days, you know? There we go. Looks pretty good, right? And then you could also, like, you know, come in here and then just erase. Got to make sure your eraser also has a normal channel to erase. These channel things are complicated, eh? Let's keep doing some stuff. Let's do some more stuff. A couple more vents. This can be addicting, so I won't go forever, but, you know, it's cool. Kind of would be better if I could actually see, though. That works. Look, see? Like, they're another thing now. All right, I guess that's good enough. Maybe we'll just do... I'll end with one of these, like, panels. You know, this is a good sci-fi panel thing here. It's a door right here. Service panel, okay? To get in there. To change the batteries for the helmet. Okay, cool. All right, that's good. There you go. There's some normal stamping detail. All right, so that's normal stamps. So now I'll show you one other little thing that I think's fun that I did while messing around, and just to show you kind of some ideas on how you can use height and some other things to just add detail, you know, just as an example. So it's a simple thing, and then we'll get into specific things just for this asset. All right, so that's normal stamps. This lives down there, right? So now I think it's time that we actually make our model detail folder. So where could we put it? We could probably put it at the top, but yeah, I suppose we could put it at the top for now. We can always move it later. All right, so I'm just gonna add like this edge extrude over everything. So I'm gonna get our model detail folder cooking here. My model, or I'm sorry, I'm gonna set my folder to pass through on everything. Make a base color in here, and we'll call it edges extrude. All right, and then height, we're gonna go down for this example. Doesn't really matter because you're just gonna end up being a normal map. So we're gonna add a black mask. All right, and remember, now we're gonna push down here. So I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna add a generator, I'm gonna add our curvature, and then we're gonna mess with some of these settings. So we're still gonna do edges. For global blur, we'll blur it a little bit. Balance, we'll up it a little bit. And then contrast, we'll up that too. And then we're gonna do an invert. So let's see what we're cooking with here. So for edges, we're gonna do sharp, something like this, and then we're gonna zero all this other stuff out. Okay, so with our curvature, I just using sharp again in edges, and I'm just trying to get the edges to peak for me out a little bit, right? So I can pick it up. And then maybe even need some contrast to tighten it, but there you go. Something like this, okay? So if we take a look at what it looks like right now, the edges are popping out, which is kind of a cool look already. So with bevel, it just softens it, and then we can do the smoothing to round it, you know, which makes it look a little bit more purposeful. And then we can get in there and just remove the bits that we don't like, you know. So I don't know, something like this. See what smoothing does. Oh, that's kind of cool. Ooh, makes it a little bit simpler. And so that's cranked way too high, probably. Something like this might be okay. I wonder. Actually, let me see if we can get this looking good too. That'd be pretty sweet. Let's see. Curve offset. Do we need that? All right, we don't need it everywhere. Why don't we... Here, let's do this. That's using some stuff to mess around. Again, this is kind of cool, don't you think? Like, look at that. It's kind of cool, popping your edges. But anyways, trying to make some like extra panel detail, especially for this black part, because it's looking a little simple. I think it looks pretty good, the black part. That's what I'm looking at. So what we could do now is we could say, we can make a folder, edges extrude layer. It's good to not have the same name in, you know, and everything. So we're gonna call this, because then now we could do a black mask and we could just pick where we want this. You know, it wasn't looking so good here, right? It's like, but the settings, so, you know, to make the settings look good here doesn't look good here. But, you know, the point is like we could just make this area look a little cooler. Got a little notch in there, you know? Yeah, maybe we add it there. So it's extra thingy if we want to. Up here it looked pretty good. You know, it kind of goes around the screw. Very Star Warsy. Here, let's get our mirror back on. All right, Coolio. So that worked out pretty good. Let's see if I can add it anywhere else. I'm gonna do something a little bit more curated now, okay? So we're messing around with this black part on the side of the helmet, and there's this kind of ear cup. And again, what I was feeling while texturing is this thing's kind of, especially if I'm showing the side view, this is a big element. Didn't have that much interest going on in the model. I don't wanna just do paint chips everywhere for the detail or to get some interest there. So I was just playing around with some ideas to add more materials and stuff. So we have this single model right here on the ear cup, right? And right now it's just both red. And so what I want to do is get some of this black plastic in here, get some metal in here, and then I'll have paint. So we'll have 3 different things going on, and I'll show you how we can use some of the selection tools and some of the other things we've been doing already to add a model detail here. So it's a little bit more complex and interesting. Okay, so let's set that up. All right, let's do new folder. Let's just start with a fill layer, and we'll call it ear trim, and then we'll have a BC here. That's fine. And then height, we're gonna do 0.1, fine. And then we'll set to replace on everything here. So we're gonna replace the height. And then roughness, we'll make it 0.3, and then metallic. All right, we're gonna have a shiny disc here. We'll do some Star Wars stuff. Okay, so let's add a black mask to here, add a paint, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna select polygons this time. We're gonna do a polygon select. I might need to bring my wireframe back up, shouldn't I? All right, so I'll get started here. Now I already know what I wanted, the kind of shape I want, right? So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna cut a notch out of it. That's what I'm gonna do. So you see these 2 rows here? So I'm gonna count these. I'm gonna say, ooh, something like that. Would that be good? And then we'll do it on the other side. Something like this, right? Does that feel mirrored? Yeah, like it's turned a little bit. That's pretty cool. Let's jump into the flat view so we can finish a little easier. Okay, so yeah, it comes in here, comes back up here. I think that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's good. Okay, and then we're just gonna start filling this up. And I think we'll even do one more row inside. So now it's just about getting all these selected. Cool. Let's see what this looks like. How are we looking now? Yeah, boy. Okay. Now, a little bit crunchy. That's okay. But, you know, you could leave it like this. But, you know, why don't we use our trusty... why don't we use our... But, yeah. So, yeah, you could leave it like this. But we could use our trusty bevel smooth again. So we're going to go filter, bevel smooth, and then distance. We're going to do something pretty small. Smoothing, something a little bigger. See the rounded edges now? Pretty cool, right? That looks better. All right, and then we'll do some more anchor points too. So we're going to, you know, we're going to put all this stuff together. So there's the air trim shape. Let's add an anchor point to that. We want to get this edge looking. It's a little bit clean, right? A little bit weird like it's sitting on top. Let's get this more separated. We'll call this ear shape outline. And then for this one, we're going to make it darker. And then for height, we're going to go down because we're going to make a little trench around this. And the roughness, we're going to do 1. Remember, I told you never to do this. So I guess I won't. But you can also put AO in there. To be continued. Black fill layer, and then you guessed it, we're gonna get our anchor. That's not the right one, is it? Oh, it is. But we need just the outline, so we're gonna do an outline. Filter, mask outline. It looks like the guy again. Who did I say it looked like? Flubber. Okay, mask outline. All right, threshold 0, width 0.01, blur 0.01, just a little guy. Look at that though. Now it looks like it's seated in there. Look at that, huh? Are we cooking with gas or what? No. What do you think? And now I think if we go down here to the paint, for the paint, I think I want to get rid of this region. So how can I do that? Can I do it with the UVs? It's loading all the anchor stuff. Let's see. Did I get it right? Did I win? Did I not? I guess I didn't split that. Yikes, dude. Okay. Well, what we could do, we're going to make it black plastic, well, aren't we? Let's do that. Let's go into black plastic. We have it set to replace, don't we? So what if I just came in here and just did some dirty brushing? What if I just did a little bit of dirty brushing, you know what I mean? That'll do it. That'll do it. A little tip too, since we're in here, I want to show you something here. The painting in the UV view, it's good, okay? Obviously, us old timers just used to do this. It's the only thing we did. But there's a setting I want to show you. Just anytime you're painting in the UV view, I want you to do this because you're actually still in the 3D, if that makes sense. And you can do these weird projections and stuff. So if you look over, you see where it says alignment tangent wrap, you can change that to UV and that's better. So now it's just straight up. This is just straight up painting in the UV view now. Just like back in the day. You might not feel a difference and that's okay, but it's going to cut down on mistakes because you'll see the brush actually like changing size and doing weird angles and stuff when it's not like that because it's actually like doing a weird 3D thing. But anyways, I digress. All right, now is this the right plastic? Yeah, it is. That looks better, right, guys? Look at that. Ooh, freaking. Ooh, a little bit of Sith action now. Am I right or what? Am I right or am I right? Pretty cool. Okay, cool. So that's that one. Alrighty, let's do a little bit more complex one. Now what I want to do is I'm going to dress up this pipe. You know, we got a big black pipe in our face. Got these 3 segments. They're the same. A little bit boring. So what I'm going to do is we're going to make a little cage. It's kind of, I saw one of my references. All right, so let's do it. Okay, let's create a new folder in our model details. I should put these in a folder, by the way. We'll call this ear detail. Good, so now we got 2 folders going on. So now we're going to do a new folder for our pipe cage. And we're going to call it pipe cage. And then inside, again, we're just going to do pass. This is good practice. I don't know if you need it every time. It's just that way, if something's not working, I'm like, what's going on? That's how I like to use folders, is just to contain things. All right, do a fill layer. We'll call this metal cage. And then we'll need this to be metal. That's a fine metal color. Height, we'll do a little baby height, 0.01. Roughness, we're going to make that pretty shiny. And then it's going to be metallic, obviously. The roughness, probably we should set that. Now I could come in here and then in the height, sorry, the height to get out the bumps, right? It looks pretty cool, all smooth like that. Now I could come into the height channel though, and like I could bring some of it back. So I wonder like just a little bit, just so it's not you know, it's kind of nerd out on stuff like that. It's like, why not, dude? Just lower the opacity a little bit. Okay, so we have our metal thing here. Now we're gonna add a mask to this folder so we can see, because that's metal everywhere. We don't need that. And then let's see if I broke this off. No, I didn't. I think I'm realizing what happened here. Thought I was smart and I separated some of these UVs for the demo, but I didn't do it on this version of the model. So we're doing it the old-fashioned way. That's okay. Okay. So now we got our metal pipe. Looks good. Okay. Now let's add a black mask to this folder because we have a metal cage in here. Now we're gonna add some more stuff. We're gonna add our little holes. So we're gonna add a fill layer on top of this, and we're gonna use the hexagons right here. Hexagon. And then we're gonna change this up. So tiling, we're gonna put two here just to get it up, and then 12 here. So quite a lot. The balance, get that up higher. And then contrast. Hit invert. And then let's see, let's get smaller holes or whatever. That looks pretty good. All right, now we're gonna do a threshold on here to make it super crispy. Let's see. I'm trying to not type so we can actually see where things are, but I can't help but type it all the time. Do you see it anywhere? Oh, it's down here. So now it's super crispy, huh? Is that too crispy though? It's not so bad before, to be honest with you. I'm gonna leave it like this for now. And then I'm gonna do anti-aliasing. FXAA. Okay, that looks pretty good actually, I like that. All right, I wonder if we make it a little higher. I think that's better. Okay, and then, so what's cool though is like from back here, I'm like, oh, the hole should be bigger. That's the hexagon balance. So I can make it look however I want, like a cage. And then, so in case you didn't see what I did there too, you can just literally drag these around. And also if I hold Alt, I can copy them. So yeah, this makes more sense. It's easier. That way I just do it on the fill layer, and the pipe cage is just the mask, like where it goes. You know what I mean? And so I put the holes here, but they go everywhere, but who cares? You know, I was like, should I do blend modes on this? No, just if you don't know what to do, just add a folder, dude. Yes, indeedy. Okay, so that looks kind of good. It looks a little thin, so I'm gonna make the holes a lot smaller, and then I need to make this look like holes, and then we'll make it dark. There we go. See, isn't that better now? Clean, dude. Looks like holes or something. Like, would it actually holes? Probably not. He's just leaking gas. He's like, it doesn't work. But I think it looks better. Pops out. See what I mean? Nice. Looks like a car part now or something, right? Okay, so there we go. We got a little extra detail there. I'm gonna draw inspiration from here, having a little inset guy with some grip on there instead of just a cylinder. I think that's gonna look better. So let's build that out right now. We'll go back to paint mode. There's our pipe cage. Looking good. All right, now let's do our orange gasket. I'm gonna make a new folder called, you guessed it. All right, we'll set our folder to pass through. Let's just create a fill layer in here. We'll call it base. And then for base color, make it darker. We'll do a height. We'll set it to 0 in case we need to replace something. And then roughness, 0.5, nice middle ground. And then metal will be 0. Maybe like a dark base. Let's do a black mask. Same thing as we did before. Let's say where this goes, right? So now we got like our global mask, right? And now we can mess around in here and do whatever we want. So I'll create a new fill layer and we'll call it orange. And then we'll do BC, something nice and orange. All right. And then let's do some height here. And then for roughness, we'll make it a little shinier. Let's put a default on there. Okay. And then let's add a black mask to this orange layer and separate it from the base a little bit. And then we'll add a paint. And I'm just going to chip this away. Maybe I'll line it up with this. I'm going to look nice. Let's see, did I go all the way through there? Where is that? Now what? Guess what? Guess what I'm going to do? This looks so sharp. Oh, if only there was a way. What would I do? Come on, dude. Bevel smooth, dude. Have you been watching? Bevel smooth. I told you there's going to be a lot of bevel smooths. And I keep asking myself, every time I use a million of these when I texture, I'm like, what was I doing like last year before this came out? All right. 0.01. Smoothing a little bit. A little bit of smoothing, a little bit of smoothing, and then negative. There we go. So it looks nicer, right? Don't it? All right. Now I do think I need to do my replace shenanigans again on the base. Now we're going to mess around a little bit more. It's, if you see here in the reference, we have kind of a lip to it. I think that's nice. So we're not just going to leave it 2D. We can mess around some more. I'm going to add a blur to this, and then it'll just be a little bit, you know, we'll do 23, dude, MJ, the GOAT. And then add a levels, and then we're just going to crank this a bit. So we're going to come up around here. All right, let's add an anchor to this, and let's add even more detail here. Let's do a new layer and call it edge height. Black mask, fill. Let's get our mask we just messed around with, orange. And then let's mess around with this some more. Do a bevel smooth again on this, and this time we're gonna go in. Yeah, in distance 0.05, I guess. Smoothing, we'll smooth it up. And then for this one, we're gonna do a height. We want it to come up or come up? Oh, come up's good. That looks pretty cool. Look at that. You know, it pops up. I mean, it looks a little 2D if it's too hard, huh? So maybe just gotta come up a little bit like that, something like that. Now we need to add our little grip, you know, little dots or something. Okay. So yeah, see, we're cooking though. We're like modeling stuff, aren't we? But it's in the texture, guys. See, that's the idea. All right, let's do another one. Let's add another fill layer. Call it dots. Let's add some dots. And then let's do height. Let's go. Yep, we're making dots go down. Roughness again. We're making holes. Anytime I make holes, I do roughness 1. And AO we could do 0. We haven't added an AO channel yet. We'll talk about that later. We're gonna add a black mask to our dots, and then we're gonna fill it. So first I'll show you what we get some dots, and then we'll get a little tricky here. So I'm gonna do circles, and then for the circles, we gotta do some tiling here, and then contrast is gonna be 1, and then more tile, tiny dots, tiny dots. Balance, we'll go whatever, something like that. So we got dots everywhere. This is how we're gonna do it, right? We want to put it in here. I'll show you this. We're going to add the fill, and we're going to actually get our orange mask again. Okay, so we have the orange mask to start with. Okay, so we're just mask on mask now. The circles, we could do inverse subtract. If we flip it, so we have the fill here, you know, we could go to subtract, and then it would be right here. Now we're gonna, which is good, just on our orange part again, right? And then, so we got our dots, right? So what I did was I filled it again with the orange mask. Okay, so we just got the same mask again to start with. Then I used bevel to bevel it in, and you can see here it's out, and then just curve offset and shape. Literally the opposite of what's in my notes. So I don't know what the heck I was doing. But anyways, you can see here with these settings, you know, it lets me go in and out, which is the whole point, you know, because I just wanted to offset it to get, you know, around these little bevels, so the dots are in the middle. Now, if you can notice, there's some gradient in there still. That's not what I want. I just wanted to procedurally make a perfect mask that just, you know, gets a little smaller. So I added a threshold, and the threshold comes in like that, right? And so all I'm doing is I'm just raising the threshold, boop, right at the end, just so there you go. And you could even, if you wanted to, by the way, it depends on how much you need this, but you could blur it and then do an anti-aliasing, or just do an anti-aliasing right now if you want. But again, I'm just using this to say where my circles go. And the circles, you know, I was like inverse subtract, all this crazy shit, you know. But you know, you just do multiply, guys. Just do multiply. And there you go. And now I can like, oh, these holes are a little bit weird. So I just go to my bevel smooth, and I just up the distance. There we go. And now my dots are perfectly in the middle. So yeah, why didn't I do that the first time? I don't know. Stop asking me so many questions, dude. Chill out. But yeah, this height thing, I think it'd be a little stronger too. Yeah, dude. So yeah, I think that's a little cool little bit of detail there. I don't know if it's triggering that tryptophobia thing. Although again, I think it is even cooler if I take it away from here though. Yeah, it is cooler there. It is. It's just cooler if it's got the lip coming up. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's cooler. I don't care what you say. What you say? Yep. Here we go. So now we got some model details, don't we? So if that's it for our model details for now, and you can see where we are here, and then where we were before. Turn off my folder, let everything dump. There we go. So that's it before. It looks more plain, doesn't it? And now there we go with our model detail. So yeah, looking better now, a little bit more interesting. And this is just some of the ways that you can add details to your assets while in texturing, you know, so you can get a little bit more interest. And there you go. That's model details. Okay, so next I want to share some ways to make decals. Just pretty simple ways. Again, you can go really deep and do custom stuff. I'll show you using the tool and things like that. So we'll put some stickers and decals on here next. Decals, stickers, numbers, emblems, you know, little things in your texture on your model. If you're doing sci-fi stuff, hard surface stuff, super fun, awesome way to bring interest, detail, scale, storytelling. We're gonna keep it going by staying organized. We're gonna put this, we're gonna make a new folder called Decals. And then we'll just start the colors on over. Here we go. Pass through, and then in our folder, we'll put a sticker. But to do that, why don't we first start with this fancy new tool? At least it's new to me. I don't know how long it's been in here, to be honest with you. But it's called the custom sticker tool. Look at that smiley. It's so cool. And this is really cool. So let's put a warning label right here. So I'm just going to drag this right on my model. Doink. There you go. Pretty cool. It's loading. There you go. So there's our sticker. And you can click this, and with, you know, W, you can move around, E, rotate, and then R, scale, you know, like in normal 3D. But we need to see what we're doing, right? So all we gotta do is put your image right here. Now I'm including some stickers and decals to use while you're doing this. And so I'm gonna use some here from Jonas Ronegard. Probably butchering his name, maybe Jonas. You may have seen his work on ArtStation, but I contacted him. He was kind enough to loan me 2 of these to give out to you guys to use. I bought his stuff years ago. He makes this stuff, and you can buy all kinds of stuff, but I love his presentation too, and sticker book. Cool designs and all that. So I'm just gonna put all these in here, actually, the ones I'm gonna use for the demo, okay? So I'm just gonna drag these in to the project, then I'm gonna identify these as textures, so they'll be filtered as textures, okay? And it's gonna be in the project. So there you go. There's my stuff, okay? So I can just drag my little like warning label right down there, and boom, there you go. Now right out the gate, the settings aren't, you know, to my liking, but that's okay. So we're gonna play with some of them. So let's see, let's start with the outline. I don't want the outline like this. And then the height's a little crazy too, but let's keep going with the material. For the roughness, that'll be higher. And then wear and tear is pretty cool that there's stuff in here. Edge wear, I always like edge wear. Makes it a little bit more irregular, yeah? And then folds intensity. I don't think we need that crazy right now. And then sticker damage. Let's get some damage in there. We'll go 0.75, and then for the intensity, we'll go 0.35. There you go. It's kind of cool, right? Like a little rip. Now, I do think it looks pretty fat, pretty chunky sticker there. So I'm going to come down here. You can also change the residue color. You know, feel free to play around. It's pretty cool. Now, the height range, I think is just way too high for me. So I'm going to lower this. Now I'm going to position it on the helmet like it was added here when they manufactured it or something like that. I don't know. It looks a little too new too, by the way. So let's add a filter here, and then do HSL. That's hue saturation levels. We just want it on the base color, and I just want to desaturate it, darken it a little bit so it looks a little older. Maybe not too crazy, but whatever, you get the idea. Something like that. Okay, that's our sticker. Let's drag it in our decals folder, and we'll name this so we know what's going on. Let's add more stickers. Okay, let's drag well, we can do a section, you know, like another manufacturer sticker. Let's do another sticker tool. I guess we could have duplicated it, but it's kind of fun to just drop these things on. All right, I think again we don't need an outline for this one. It's kind of cool going behind the strap, no? Whatever. Okay, do we need all this stuff? I don't know. Let's do outline thickness 0, material. I guess we can leave it like that. I don't know. Metallic sticker would be kind of cool. But let's just change this stuff up. Folds intensity, and then corner 0, 0, 0. Sticker damage, and then yeah, we'll do a little bit. Okay, something like that, like a little hole there. And again, the height range. Again, probably a little too brand new. All right, section 1A. Cool. All right, well, there you go. There's a couple stickers that we're cooking with. Now let's do an easy one too. Check this out. So we'll do like kind of a branding thing or something, right? Okay, so we had this little logo right here. Now I can just drag this straight onto the model, and it'll ask me, what do you want to do? And so I can say, well, let's make it a mask, and then I'll do whatever I want, right? So again, same, just like the sticker, I can position this So yeah, really cool. And then I can start giving it some stuff. I can say, let's give it some height. I can say, we're going to replace everything, that's for sure. There we go. And then there you go. So looking already pretty cool. And then I'll just drag that in there. And then you could damage this up too if you want. But yeah, I thought looks pretty cool. Maybe we want a roughness too. No, I don't know. Something like that. All right, there's our little branding. Okay, so how about a transparent sticker? And that's kind of easy to do too. We can do transparent sticker by using our sticker tool and then putting something on top. So check it out. We can do our sticker tool and we'll put like a little orange triangle thing here or something, okay? And then we'll put our little square here. So I'll just show like, in these references, you see how there's like transparent stickers? Like we'll just do one of these like triangles. See if there's a sharper image of them. Not really. Here's one, right? So you have this square that's transparent and then there's like a picture in it. Same thing here. So like instead of having like all these individual things, you could do like, like it was on a sheet, which is a nice detail. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start by dragging that sticker tool back on here, but we're not going to put the image in this one. All right. Instead, we're just going to disable all the materials except for height and roughness. All the channels. We're just going to disable all the channels except for height and roughness. And there you go. Again, I think it's too thick. So, oops, that's position. Height range. We're going to do height range. We're going to do 0.3 or something like that. There you go. I think the folds are a little sharp. Just drop that down a little bit. We'll do sticker roughness variation over here. That's fine actually, sticker roughness. We'll get them a little shinier, which I think is better. And then yeah, folds intensity. So there you go. That way we can really see it's a sticker, right? All right, so we want this looking shiny. That's the difference here, right? And then we could also make it smoother. Like, let's say we go to our height here and we do replace. Okay, replace isn't working because that's the entire fill layer. If we go to normal, that'll give us what we're looking for. Still, I'm gonna lower the opacity just a little bit. There you go. So kind of, we're just faking like you can see through it, right? Okay, so that's our sticker there. Again, pretty thick though, pretty thick guy. So I guess to make it look how we want here, looking good. So we got our transparent sticker. All right, so there we go. Now let's put our triangle on here. Right, that was the whole point of this. We need a backing so we can do a cool triangle. Here we go. And we're gonna do a mask again. Still eyeballing it. You could make this asset, like in Photoshop or something, and then bring it in. So if you really wanted to. Okay, then we're gonna make it kind of orange yellow. All right, there you go. Maybe we can make it a little bit more techy. Do we have any like tech triangles here? It's kind of cool. This one's kind of cool. It looks like an infinity going around and around. Let's do that one. So there's that. I guess if it's supposed to be, probably it's supposed to be high vis a little bit, right? And again, we're gonna just make sure, well, the height range should be like that. And then that's kind of cool actually. This looks even better because now the wrinkles kind of like pop up. That's like, yeah, that's better actually. I like that a lot. Cool. There you go. And it's nice and shiny, right? It doesn't need to be glossier. That's pretty good. 0.15. Cool. All right, now we got a sticker. Let's make a folder for this. All right, and then again, we're gonna make this pass through. And then triangle backings, fine. So we can put these together in our sticker and we can put these in our decals folder. And there we go, we're cooking. We're cooking. All right, let's do a little warning label up here on our light again. And then why don't we start by just duplicating this thing, because this backing is pretty cool. So let's do that. We're gonna get one of these guys. We'll use it for something else. A little bit different than dragging it, huh? And you can actually, in the 3D projection settings, you can zero some of this stuff out and get it kind of nice and perfect, right? Isn't this the direction it's going? Yes. Okay, cool. And then also the depth is up here, projection depth 0.3, so this should be enough. You can like have it come off. Alrighty, so yeah, that's that. Looks like some height stuff again because the way we're blending it. That's okay. Let's go in here. So for the height position, we need to get it above the dots, and then for height, we're gonna want to wipe it pretty good there. Again, we want it to be thin. Looks like that's going in. That's not what we want. To come out a little bit. Good. Height range. Is this the wear and tear? Oh, that's the, it's fine. Okay, and then folds intensity. No, we don't need that to be that crazy, do we? But I do like some edge wear. I do like making some edge wear, which also I kind of want to do that on this one too. Edge wear is one of my favorite parts of this. Yeah, that's sick, dude. I mean, come on now. Just gotta be careful with my blend technique here, huh? Is that what's going on? All right, I guess I can't do that much edge wear with this. It's so pretty cool. Cool. All right, back up here, back up here. So we have our label. It's got some edge wear. Maybe not that much, it's fine. And then it's pretty like shiny. Is that maybe? And now let's do another one. So we got some kind of danger label, and then we'll just say make it the base color. Actually, is that what we want? Yeah, it's fine. I'll just show that. Why not? I'll just show that. You could make this another kind of decal-like thing with roughness and all that, but we're just going to do this, and then I'm going to fill it in then. This one doesn't have to be clear. This one could have, it's a little bit rougher, let's say, and then no outline, and then it's like a charcoal or something like that. It's good. You can't do too much roughness variation. That's because I squashed it, so we got to be careful with that. But yeah, there you go, something. And then maybe the decal, I could drop the opacity a little bit. I want this to look very thin, you know. Kind of good. I guess I can't do edge wear. Looks like edge wear is going in and out of the height position. Or the height, yeah. No, that was okay. It's, yeah, it is that. Cool. Got another sticker. All right, last thing, last little part of the decal thing is projecting. I want to show projecting. That's something that comes up. There's all kinds of reasons you want to project. In the spirit of doing this decals and putting things on the helmet, I'm going to do a checker pattern, and I'll show you some more projection tools. This is good for, like, you know, think like tattoo art on an arm or some kind of crazy mural, maybe stuff on a piece of clothing, that kind of stuff. So I'll show you some of the tools where you can bend and manipulate things. So let's add our checker pattern, kind of for us to be like a vinyl wrap. So anyways, I thought maybe I'll just mess around and show you a setup for this, just since we're on this on the subject. We're gonna talk about dirt and stuff a little later, because that happens at the end. But just want to show how you can build something like this, okay? So I created a new fill layer, and then what I did is, you know, I made a dark color, I did a multiply in my base color, and I added the roughness go up. And then the first thing I did is I just added a anchor to the backing. That's the square. And then I brought that in. So now I got that anchor, and then I'll show you, you know, if I go fill layer, and then I go anchor the triangle backing. Now it's not going to work yet, okay, because the default's here. So I need to say extract alpha, and I'm going to take it from the height channel, because remember it has height, right? So now we get our square. So that's how I did that. And then next is I use the mask outline to just get a blurry edge on the outline. Then I'm going to use levels so that it's, like, you know, strong in the core and on the, you know, and then it fades out. And then clouds to just break it up so that it's not, you know, so perfect. You know what I mean? Could be however you want, really. Then grunge dirt. I'm just tiling grunge dirt. You could tile it even more if you want, again, you know, whatever. And it's set to soft light. This clouds is multiply, again, to just take chunks out of it. And then this is soft light, so the gradients start to get more noise, you know, this dirty pattern. And then I just drag this same anchor at the top, and then over here you can hit invert, and I just set it to multiply. So I'll show you what's happening here, right? So we got this blurry dirt, clouds takes chunks of it away, grunge gives it some noise, some tooth. And then I'm punching out the middle so that it looks like it's been gathering on the edges. And then I just dropped it down a little bit. So, like, some of it's creeping in. We get a little bit of a discoloration, but it's got a sharper edge on the corners. So yeah, there you go. And then I can just, you know, you can come in here and make more or less dirt wherever you want. Clouds, you can even hit random on the seed until you get what you like. But just thought, hey, I'll just show you how to do some sticker dirt. Right? I don't know. Okay, cool. What were we talking about? I got a little distracted. Oh yeah, we're going to do, now let's continue on with our decal thing. We're going to do our vinyl wrap. Remember, we're going to do checkers. We're going to add this checker thing, and we're going to position it on our helmet and get it to wrap in. Okay, so first things first, what are we going to do? We're just going to drag, we're just going to keep our dragging on here. We're going to type in checker. We're going to drag this checker pattern right on here, and we're going to select We're just gonna use it as a base color. That's fine. And then for tiling, I'm gonna set it to 8. So I need to scale this up, something like this. And then I want to position it. I want to fill this like channel that's gray right now. I want that to be checkers. So it has to have a little bit of a bend in it. So right now I'm just gonna try to get it to cover the whole section, something like this, something kind of in the middle ground, you know? So I guess this kind of middle line, I'll try to get, you know, keep it there. All right, so now we got the projection, we scaled it up. So it looks okay, right? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start editing the vertices of this. You can see these, you know, on these edges, we have these arrows pointing, right? And if I come over here to my little warp thing here, the transform warp, I can edit vertices. You can also, I'm gonna go to edit vertices, and now you can see at each of these points, I get a white dot. So now I'm actually just like in 3D, I'm gonna hold shift, I'm gonna select all these, I'm gonna rotate them. Pretty cool, pretty cool. I'm just gonna start with a basic warp here. Okay, it looks like it's stretching kind of a lot. I think it's okay. Again, you can always, non-destructive, right? You can always get it like that. Let's see. Let's do a black mask directly to this. Wonder if I have to like mirror that. I guess I could. Could I mirror that? Is there a mirror filter? Mirror axis X. Well, it's in the projection settings. So we'll come over here. Symmetry X, that's good. Oh, flip. Oh no, that looks like that's UVs. So we have our red line. Can we get it right in the middle? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Of course it'd be in the projection settings. That makes sense. All right, good enough for now. My perfectionism is getting in the way. So I guess we'll stop. So yeah, we got it pretty good now. We just do a little art direction here. We'll add, yeah, let's make this like a yellow and black. So we'll add a levels for our base color, lift it up a little bit so that it's not like black. And then I'm gonna, if I add a fill, oh yeah, what if I add a fill, make it yellow? Now we got checkerboard too. I wonder if I could keep my black though. Is there a way to keep my black color? Nope. Multiply is probably gonna be, so I'll do the multiply first, like it's brand new. Then I'll lift up the blacks. There we go. So now it's black and yellow. So this is our decal pass. Check it out. We've got decals. Look at that. See, it's got different roughnesses and stuff. We've got little patterns. We got stickers. All right. So now we've got our model with our decals applied. We got some life into it, interest, little bits of color. So that's really fun. Maybe one more. Let's do here. Let's do one more sticker here. Forgot about one. Let's do one more. Let's drag our girl up here. I put one of my stickers in here. There we go. Cool. We'll leave the outline and everything. I think it looks cool. Looks like a sticker. But yeah, we'll have the height normal. And then we'll get our, and then we'll do our folds intensity a little bit lower. All right. There's our helmet with some stickers now. We got decals, stickers, little emblems, clear ones, colorful ones. We got a checker pattern. You know, we use some warp and everything. That's a bunch of stuff you can do with decals and stickers. Bring some color, bring some life, bring some storytelling to your project. Now that we have our texture in a pretty good spot, you know, we've gone through the blockout. Now we've done a lot of material definition and some texturing and everything. Now we want to add a bunch of junk on top, right? So we're following in that kind of core principle we talked about at the beginning of layering things in the similar order that they would be in real life. And so if this were a real life prop, we would have built it, painted it, done some effects, and now we're doing the things on top, the washes, the dirt. We're doing color variation, cavity things to pop things out. So this is a super fun part of the process, satisfying, because we're going to get to take advantage of some of the work, not only from the model, but even mixing with some of the texturing we've done so far. And we're gonna do this all in a folder I call overlays that sits at the top of your layer stack. And we're gonna put a bunch of stuff in there that help bring our model and our texture more to life. Let's create our overlays folder at the very top of our stack. All right, there's our new folder. And all right, overlays. All right. Now we'll jump back over to base color and I'll set it to pass through on all channels again for our folder. All right, now let's start with cavity. That's a good place to start. Let's add a fill layer, call it cavity, and we're gonna put some junk in the cavities, in the cracks, you know? All right, let's go over to base color, and we'll do something a little bit darker. Okay, pretty dark, maybe as dark as one might go here. I'll set the opacity for the base color down though, you know, something around 40 or something. And then the roughness, we're gonna go pretty high. So we'll go like 0.9 or something, which is as high as you might go. Metallic, we're gonna do 0. This is really gonna help pop things on the metal. And then we're gonna add a black mask to this. All right, so we're gonna get some contrast in color, material, and roughness right now. So let's add curvature generator. There we go, like we've done many times before. And again, we're gonna mess around with these settings, right? Global balance, we can up it a little bit. And then we're gonna set the mode right here from edges to cavities. All right, you could also, by the way, why don't I show you this? You could also, so I'm just gonna use sharp. Okay, so maybe sharp and then maybe fine a little bit and then zero everything else out because we want really tiny details, right? Just want to show you the different options. This is cavities. It's trying to find the cavities. Those will probably work well for what we're doing. But you also have unprocessed. You have dual too, which is kind of everything. You know, you might want this for another kind of effect. Again, just to, you can imagine doing this just to pop your form. You see how it gets readable? You know what I mean? So this is the kind of like little things that we're doing very subtly that isn't exactly from reality, but just to help because it already defines the shapes, right? And then there's unprocessed. This is straight up the cavity bake. And again, this is useful because you don't have any interpretation. You can put levels on this. You have full control. So this is like literally your cavity bake. We'll jump over here and we'll do cavities though for us. Or sorry, that was your, sorry, this unprocessed, this is your curvature bake. So this is like your raw curvature, which again, you could set to overlay here. Like if you just had this as a base color, you could set it to overlay, which maybe I'll show you if you just want to see. So watch, if I make a base color and I set it to curvature, all right, and then I just go unprocessed, I could set it to overlay, maybe soft light. Let's see if overlay is, there you go. Maybe soft light would even be better, let's see. So soft light doesn't change the color as much, you know? So this is the kind of thing where it just pops things out. This is what we're gonna be doing. Anyways. Continue on with cavities though. Curvature, we got cavities, sharp, fine. How's that looking? Okay, that's pretty good. All right, now we want to add a little bit more to this. Let's bring in some soft, and then we'll add some tooth. We'll add some detail to this too. A little bit like that, medium, I don't know, and then large. We got a little bit more gradient going on there. Okay, then for use texture right here. Trying to show you my highlight. I can't do it. Okay, true. So we have use texture set to true. Texture opacity. For some reason, you have to set this high or it won't work. And then for the texture, let's look for grunge, dirt, scratched. There we go. And then the texture opacity. As you can see, it's fading in and out. So maybe just so it's not, you know, perfect. So that's like a perfect gradient. We get a little bit of tooth in there. And then maybe we should tile it a lot more too. Let's go to the scale. Do we have a scale for this? Let's go really high. Yeah, so that's better. So there we go. So we got some cavity. We can continue with this. Let's mix some more. And then we can dial this back in. Let's see what this is looking like so far in the model. There you go. So you're getting some, I'll turn it on and off. So it's popping the borders in between of everything, right? The edges in between, which is good. Separating the elements, that's what we want. We'll continue by adding, here we'll go to the mask, see what's going on. I'm gonna add ambient occlusion, if I could spell, but I figured it out. All right, so the ambient occlusion, let's do global balance. And then let's see, should we invert it? Yeah, I think global invert, or just invert. All right, so look, now we're getting some like dust and gunk or whatever is dark grimy stuff in here. Again, this is just darkness. It's not exactly dirt. We'll get back to the metal. And then let's see. So this is a lot of contrast. We start lowering this. Okay, we get a little bit in there. All right, so now it's like inside, like shadowy deep areas, right? So now if I set this over here on the layer, if I set it to screen, it'll add these two together. So now we got our cavity cooking. So this is kind of like those washes that we're talking about, you know, where like you poured some dark thing on here and then you wiped it all away. But again, it pops because the metalness is dropping, the roughness is getting more rough, you know, the base color is getting darker, and it just helps make shapes readable. So there's our first little overlay of the day. Okay, let's keep going. Let's pop out our edges. We'll make a fill layer now called edges. And then let's do base color of 1 because we'll probably soft light this. And then we'll just use one of our smart masks. Let's do a black mask. Okay, and then you can just search for smart masks, paint subtle, scratched. We'll just drag that right in there. And then you get all 3 of these things. See what this cooks up. Okay, there you go. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna start editing these things. So what you're gonna wanna do is let's go into the mask editor where we're starting. And then in our mask editor, let's play with our balance. Actually, that's pretty good. Gold balance, contrast, maybe a little bit. Okay. And then for our texture, we're going to do blending mode, soft light. Here, why don't we take a look at the actual mask? There we go. All right. And then scale 2, contrast 0.85, brightness. Let's go down. There we go. Because what I want is edges. And then I want some, you know, I don't want it to be perfectly procedural. You know, before we start using our brush, we're just going to use some of this stuff to mess it up. Texture and opacity. Where's opacity? Texture opacity. We can drop that down to 0.5. There we go. Okay, now what about texture 2? For the blending mode, we'll do subtract. All right, scale, let's do 5. And then for the opacity, we'll do like 0.2 for that. Okay, so now we're gonna set this blend mode to overlay. All right, there we go. So if I invert it, see it's only on the edges now. Getting this cool thing where, you know, it's popping out. But we get some tooth to it. You can play with the scale too if you want to like make things look a little smaller. You can see what we get here. It just gets brighter. So edges are getting brighter, cavities are getting darker. Helps make this stuff. All right, so that's that. You could also do, like, you could make it shiny, for instance. I'll just show you. You could make this like shinier or rougher, you know, if you wanted to. But I think this is good for now. We're just trying to subtly pop it out. All right, on to our next fill layer. Let's do more cavities. This time we're gonna do a cavity. We're gonna call it cavity broad. I'll put it below my edges. You can shuffle these around based on what kind of looks you want, but we'll just continue cavity. We'll do different look here. Same base colors before. We're gonna do a dark one. 161616. All right, and then for the base color opacity again, we'll set it something low. All right, and then let's make it rough again. Same deal. All right, and then let's add a black mask, and then let's build something with the mask editor. So that was the smart masks we were using on the edges, and now we can build something similarly. So we can come in here for generator, and we can just type in mask editor. There we go. Mask editor, it's a little wrench thing. And, you know, this kind of gives you a starting place from 0, and then we can build it up. So you can use something, and you can save these on your own if you want. But those are what the other ones are. Is just people made settings in here, and then they saved it. Global balance, we'll up this a little bit. Here, let's do this. We can take a look at what we're doing. Now, remember, we're going to try to do like a broad cavity that's just a little bit bigger. That's not as strong. All right. So yeah, we got this, and then balance, and then let's go to curvature, and then for curvature mode, let's go cavities. Already looking better. Big, we want 1. Yeah. Huge, let's see what we got. There you go. This is it all the way up. And we could also set this to multiply, so we don't lose, you know, so it's not a complete like replace. I think I'm going to lower the opacity on the roughness as well. But there we go. So we're still popping stuff out. Cool, looking cool. All right. So we've got our first kind of pass at doing overlay stuff. Cavities getting darker, more rough. Edges getting brighter. So we're separating shapes that way, you know, based on our model detail. And now let's start adding dirt. So let's build our first dirt. All right, new layer. Let's do base color here. Some kind of dark brown. That's fine. Maybe it's a little bit too red, but you get the idea. That's pretty good. Okay, roughness. Again, I always hit the limit of 0.9, right? Unless you're doing like an actual cavity. Is dirt metal? No. Metallic 0, which is going to help when it's on top of the metal. It's going to look cool. And then let's do a black mask, and then we'll add some of the assets we have in here. So let's add a fill, and then I'm going to do Grunge leak small. I'll show you this one right here. So here, grunge leak small. This will be in yours, but maybe we can make it look like there's dirt, you know. I'll show you the mask. There's dirt and maybe it's like running down. So we could change this to from UVs, which you see the orientation is different because the orientations of my UVs, the orientation of my UVs isn't perfect. You know, they're not all going the same direction. So if I change the projection from UV to triplanar, that'll be projecting it from this cube around. And now you can see we get more of a unified direction here. And then for hardness, yeah, we'll just up the hardness a little bit. That's just the blend of the projection points. Okay, so that's cool. Layer opacity, we might, you know, we could dial that in later, whatever. Let's see for this. Let's mess around with our grunge leak small here. Layer blend. All right, well, let's do this. Okay, so we have, oh, that was roughness. My bad. Let's go back to our base color. Okay, so we have our triplanar projection going. Let's tile it a little bit, probably. That's better. And then for balance, there we go. So now it's just more drips and less overall, right? And then contrast, should we get a little contrast? And that's fine. All right, cool. All right, so this is what we got so far. We have some like old drips, you see? By the way, you can see how we're layering up more and more detail in the roughness. That's what you want. You see how like the roughness is changing so much? If we jump over to roughness, I just realized, is my sticker like, oh, because the dirt's on there. Okay, cool. That's the sticker right there. But you can see we're getting more and more detail in the roughness. And we'll finish this when we do our finishing touches, we'll pop all this stuff even more. Okay, so we got this leaking. Now, we could go a little bit further too. You know, will people notice this? I don't know. You tell me, but check it out. We're getting drips everywhere. So let's make it so that the drips are strongest on the top as it would be, right? So to do that, we'll add a light generator. There's lights in here you could use. All right, so let's see, light right here. Okay, so if I just jump back over to the mask, you can see, right? It looks like a light. And you can position this. All right, so if we do something like this, and then what's this do? Like something on the top, you see? And then for the glossiness, that's kind of the sharpness, we could drop it down. So it's like, where is it dripping and fading out, kind of? And we can up this, which is kind of the contrast. And then the light attenuation is how far. You know, I can make it so it doesn't go all the way down. But you probably do want it all the way on there because it is like, you know, we want it to be kind of on everything, if that makes sense. All right, so something like this I think is good. So then what you do is set this to multiply, which punches the black through, right? And the white just turns transparent. So you can see we're darkening it now from the bottom. And so this keeps the drips on the top. See what I mean? Again, you could like, you know, play with this glossiness and stuff if you want. But yeah, a little bit of extra detail there. And you can do that for you know, a bunch of other reasons too if you want to. Okay, so that is our little drippy light. Now we can do some more. Why don't we add another mask builder? Let's add another mask builder to this. Generator, mask builder. All right, let's go back to our mask. So this comes with a bunch of other stuff. This is the legacy mask builder. I assume that's still fine. Let's see. So mask builder is the old one, and this is the new one, mask editor. Yeah, we'll see what the difference is. We'll do mask builder. Why not? You know, I mean, it comes with extra grunge already, but it says legacy. They might fade this out. I mean, they're pretty much the same. But anyways, let's mess around with this one. So we'll set this to screen again to add add the white together. But let's mess around with this for a little bit. So we'll do 0.3 and we'll just start doing more dirt stuff. Contrasts. Let's make some sharper dirt. Then grunge. Yes, more grunge. 0.3. Grunge is nice. AO, maybe not so much AO. Curvature 1, that's good. Let's open that up. Look at some more curvature. Curvature range, let's go the other way. And then concave range. Smoothness, let's pop this out. Let's get some grunge too. We have grunge right here, is it not? There's grunge. Ooh, there we go. Yes. Cool. There we go. All right, noisiness 0. And then the layer opacity, we'll do screen on this, merge all this stuff together. And then the screen opacity, let's bring it in. So this is dirt. Again, this is gonna like be in the cavities. Dirt that kind of like got stuck is kind of the idea. Okay, we can tune this while we are looking at it. It looks a little bit better without smoothness. So you just get it pretty sharp. It's kind of cool. I like that. I think I'm gonna keep that. Yeah, so dirt's on the cracks like that. I like that. All right, we're keeping that. It is kind of everywhere around these. They start to look like edges now. So let me see if I can mix Let's see. Do they call it micro details? Secondary grunge is doing it for me. Thank you, secondary grunge. Cool. Okay. At least it's uneven now. More uneven. Cool. All right. There's some dirt. Again, you know, this looks like it's just been used. It's got some raindrops on it and stuff. It's been outside or whatever. That's the idea. Let's see what it's looking like in the render. Okay. So it's starting to mix across. Yeah. I think it's working okay. All right. So far, so good. Let's add more dirt. Let's do a new fill layer. This one we'll call smeared dirt. So, you know, the first one, maybe it's dirt that has had no human interaction. Think of it that way. We added dirt where it's a dirty helmet and then water. It's either been tried to be cleaned or it's been in through the rain or whatever. And then there's dirt that's been caked around in the edges. And now we're going to do one where it's kind of got some wipes going on, that maybe someone's been wiping it or it fell or whatever. This looks pretty sick though. Every time I see this, the white and metal is pretty cool. Yeah. Okay. So smeared dirt. Let's see. Let's do base color of dark brown again. That's fine. Roughness, go 0.85. So not so rough, but pretty rough. And then 0, let's add black mask here. Let's add a fill. And then there's something called grunge wipe dusty that we'll use. See here? There you go. You see that? So we got speckles in here. We got some direction. There we go. Let's look at the mask as we build it. We'll do triplanar projection again so that it helps uniform. You know, it goes across everything regardless of UVs. And this helps tell that story we're trying to tell. Tiling 3 because we want some crispiness there. And then balance, we can up it a little bit. Let's up the balance and the contrast. Okay, now if we just looked at it like this, we get some of the specs, right? So now we have some soft gradients and now we're getting detailed specs. That's cool. Let's take it a step further. I'm just gonna show you some more things you can do anywhere on here, but we'll do some stuff. Let's do a warp and we'll use a custom image input in the warp to try to get some directionality there. Okay, so we'll just add to this. All right, so let's do a warp filter, warp. Okay, and we'll set this up a little bit. So for our intensity, we'll go higher. And then for the source mode, we're gonna do a custom noise. So right now, nothing's happening, you know, because it's 0. So instead of using just noise or Perlin noise or whatever, we can use an image. So let's look for this thing called leaky paint right here. Again, it's a bug where it doesn't load. There you go. You see how we get some directionality here? So let's try that. So check that out. Now it's looking a lot more smeared, right? It looks like white, or maybe he was going fast. This is a pod racing helmet now or something. We can change, well, let's see. For the blur, should we change the blur? If we change the blur, we'll get a little bit back. Because right now it looks really noisy, right? And if I blur all the way, it looks kind of crazy. So maybe we keep a little bit. And then for source tiling, let's see if we lower that. That looks kind of cool. Looks like some weird drips for sure. I do wish that I could, for the custom image, I wish I could do a triplanar, but I can't. Okay, leak intensity, leak scale 1, angle random. No, that's not good. All right, let's see what we got there. All right, so we got some more stuff, and then let's sharpen it up back to our thing, because when you do a warp too, it's gonna need some stuff, but it's always good to sharpen your dirts anyways. All right, let's do sharpen. Love that. You see little specks there and everything. Cool. So we've got the gradient, anything really tiny and sharp on top of a gradient below that looks nice. And then you can always add a paint layer too, by the way, and then paint out wherever you don't like it or wherever you want to, obviously don't shy away from that. Keep it going. We'll keep layering stuff up. Okay, so there we got our dirt cooking so far. All right, so that was our dirt. So we've layered up a couple of different kinds of dirt right now. You can see how if you're going to do something passive, something active, something maybe soft, has gradients, so it's older, bigger, and then tiny, more opaque, sharper, that kind of thing. Layering, more contrast, again, helps with the appealingness, the readability, but we're kind of telling a story, right? We can make it up as long as it's believable enough. Now, another thing I want to show you that this is a tip I got from Phil Robb, actually, the co-founder, art director at Turtle Rock. So years ago, he showed me this. He did the textures, the original textures on the Left 4 Dead characters. And that's when I was still learning stuff. And he showed me, that's back when before normal maps and everything. And, we painted all our textures in Photoshop. And he showed me this technique where you just have some kind of image that has junk and different colors in it. And you very, very softly put it over your stuff. And it really makes it feel more like a photo. It makes it feel more realistic because things aren't ever actually like flat colors. At least it's a cheat. I've been doing that ever since. So I'll show you how to do that in Substance Painter. And it's a good little thing to bring some nuance to your textures. So let's do that. We're gonna add another fill layer and we're gonna call it color variation. Then we're gonna search in here. Let's get it out of our smart masks. So I'm gonna put this image in there too. You can see it's called Rusty Overlay. And I'm gonna drag that into the base color. Then I'm gonna set the blend mode for the base color to soft light. So this is like literally what we used to do in Photoshop. I'm just doing it in Painter. And then we're gonna lower the opacity a little bit so it's pretty low. And then I'll put a levels on here too, so you can control whatever you want, you know. So I'll just move the midpoint down, you know, something like this. So this is super subtle, okay? Let me see if you'll even be able to tell in a stream. But so this is before and this is after. Again, this is super subtle, obviously. When you get into texturing, you'll see. But just the discoloration on here, you know, like right here getting a light spot all of a sudden. I just think it helps things from being flat, you know? You get a little happy accidents. You can obviously move and rotate this stuff around, but just getting this, like, look at this little thing here. Doesn't it look more like some kind of photogrammetry? I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but maybe it's a little superstitious. But I love adding this kind of thing, and it helps, you know, bring some subtlety and nuance. All right, now let's end with one more cavity. Let's do cavity sharp. All right, and then base color 0. This is gonna be the hardcore cavity. Roughness 0.9. All right, and then if we add an ambient occlusion, we can add that. We'll add that later. All right, black mask, curvature. Y'all know what it is. Curvature, cavities, sharp only, maybe fine 0.5. Okay, this is what we're cooking up right here. See, just to outline all this stuff. All right, so you might not be able to tell, but like, let's go in here. Before, after, before, after. Just to help, outlines everything. Is it a little hardcore? Maybe. You know, you could loosen up the base color a little bit if you want, but very tiny thing. It's just like outlining everything. There we go. I might even come in here and go metal 0. See, it just helps separate the elements. That's our last overlay. Now we have our overlays on our helmet. You can see a lot more stuff going on now. And I think it's, you know, that's the thing with texturing. The more layers of different things that are going on, you know, it just looks a lot more complex and interesting. So we still haven't done a lot of work with manual, you know, getting your brush. And I said that at the beginning. You got to be careful. I just want to walk through setting this up. You could, and oftentimes when I'm texturing, I set a lot of this stuff up and then I spend a lot of time hand painting in and out of masks and adding stuff. But for the sake of showing everything, I think it's cool to show the interactions. You could paint anything and everything, obviously. In any of these layers, you can remove, add, paint your own drips exactly where you want it. But I just want to show a bunch of the tools and functionality and everything. So we'll keep going. That is the overlays. Now I'll just show you, my helmet's going to have some emissive glow. You know what? Before I jump in and show emissive, I feel like I should tag something on the end of the overlays. And that's picking up some of the detail we've done. So let me show you that. Let me jump in here. We've set up our overlays now and it's looking pretty good, but I just want to show how we can pick up some of the detail that we have in anchors. Okay, so I'll add this to curvature. Let's do that to our normal anchors, right? So here's our cavity sharp. So in curvature, I'll do it here first, or maybe I should do it in cavity first down here, and then I'll do it again in sharp. We'll see what the difference is. So we have some like here, you know, we should see it pop up here. Remember, we added these details. So for curvature, let's come over here. And what we need to do is say use micro details. Now, I don't know why it's called that. So micro height and normal are both on. Great. I'll close this image tab. So we have micro height and micro detail on. That's crazy. It's under image inputs. Yeah. So it's really just a mislabeling. This is kind of on Painter. And then for micro normal, we could choose, oh, we haven't added anchors yet. Yoink, come down here. Normal stamps, add anchor point. Up here, cavity, curvature, micro details. Yes, height normal, you just need normal, but maybe we can pick up the height too. So now micro normal, anchor points, normal stamps. Reference channel, normal. Yeah, dude, check that out, dude. All right, we got it. All right, cavity sharp. Let's go over here. Micro details, true. Micro, normal stamps. There we go. Now I got that nice outline. See that? Pretty good. Big difference, I think. Okay, cool. So now we got our stuff. We got our details in our overlays. Much better. So let's come over here and we'll just put a new folder towards the top. You could put it below overlays too if you want a little bit of dirt in your glow. All right, let's go. Let's add some lights. Why don't we? All right, now what we got to do is turn on emissive. Well, where is it? Well, we have to add that. It's not in here yet. So we'll come into the texture set settings and we'll add our first new channel. We haven't added a channel this whole time because our template had everything we needed so far. But we can add any more of these. And what we're gonna do is just like a roughness in metallic, it's an L8, all right, an 8-bit, because it can be packed into a channel. We don't need to get too deep into this, but essentially this, you know, we just need black and white, and then we can put it in an RGB or A channel, you know, a red, green, and blue alpha channel. That's a full texture map. We can just put this anywhere. So we're gonna go emissive, and we're gonna change it to L8. So now we have an emissive channel. Okay, great. So now back in our layer, we have our light, and then for emissive, we're gonna up it, and it should glow. Let's see after it starts thinking or is done thinking. There you go. Why is it green? I don't know, honestly. Okay, so we'll add a black mask, add a paint layer, and then we can just come in here, and then I think I have lights in here, don't I? No, I don't. Do I have lights in here? No, I don't. But you get the idea. I mean, this is an object, so I'm probably just gonna make a material for these and put inserts in them, but just for the demo, you can see. Okay, if I did do sRGB, so I can get emissive color, I can go into the shader settings and I can find emissive intensity and crank that up. So now you get some color and some lens flares. That's the post effects. But the post effects is that glare, you know, from before. So this is how you can preview it. Now, it doesn't work in the ray trace renderer, unfortunately, but we'll get it in Unreal. Again, we're not going to do color. You know, you could do screenshots in here if you wanted to do cinematic stuff, but we don't really need that because we're going to add the color later. We're just going to pack this into a channel. So back to here, we're going to do L8, and that's going to make it black and white. So let's let it recalculate that, and then we'll finish painting our emissive mask. We'll do a light around the inside of the helmet and then maybe in this tube. Let's go, whatever. Lights, I'll say emissive. We'll just put it all in here. And you see now I'm adding paint layers and I'm naming them. Inner light. And then let's see, I'll just come in here and can I just choose this? Maybe I can do a strip. Should I do that wide, or I'm wondering if I should do it 2 wide or just 1 wide. Honestly, I don't know why it's yellow, and it is tripping me out. I'm trying to not let it. What? Why is it yellow? And I can't even change the base color. It doesn't even matter. It's like a sickly yellow too. It's like, what? And then it don't work in no iRay, right? If you say so. Okay, so there's that, and then I was gonna add a little bit. Just the ear light. Again, this is kind of just good practice because it helps me. I need to edit this. All right, that is emissive. Again, we're doing pretty basic. We're doing a black and white mask for emissive. We're doing an emissive mask. And then in Unreal, I can give it color and all that stuff. So just good to visualize it in here. Why don't we finish texturing kind of techniques with the cords, the wires in the back of the helmet. That way I can show using fonts, text and stuff. So kind of related to the decals from before. That's something we haven't shown. So I'll show you how you can use text in your texturing, and we'll finish up the texturing part besides the glass, which we'll do last. Okay, so let's do that now. And so now I'll show you how you can import a custom font, and you can use the text tools in Substance Painter to put text and writing in your textures, and you got a tool you can play with, so a couple different ways. But we'll just use it to put a print along the cable to make it look like a tech cable. So some simple stuff so far if you've been following along. We're gonna do the same kind of basic stuff here. I'm going to add a fill layer. I'm just gonna go fast too. We'll do orange, delete the default layer, and then we'll just pick a nice orangey color, something like this. All right, then roughness, we'll do 0.5, metalness 0, and then we'll just do a couple. That's good. Okay, let's do another one. Black. And then for this one, kind of like this. Roughness, we can make it more rough, I guess. A little bit of variety there. Same metal 0. And then we'll add a black mask to this one. So it'll just be on top. So the big ones will be black. How about that? All right. And then let's do some, well, why don't we do our metal part? So we'll do a folder called metal. And then we could do chords. Okay, and then in metal, we'll do base metal. I'll just say base metal. Here, we'll do height on for now. Roughness, 0.25, metalness, 0. Now we'll add the mask to the folder like we did before, right? That way we know. Okay, so we got metalness right down. Now there's a little groove in here. We can add some knurling. I think that'd be cool. So why don't we just add another one and we'll call it... All right, and then for this one, we'll put a height on it, and then let's do black mask, and then we'll do tile generator. Done that before. Oops. Tile generate. Okay, and then let's see pattern. We're gonna change it to pyramid. Tiling. We'll do a lot of them, and then amount. We should do a lot. 256 is probably fine. Amount. Let's max that out. Resolution, I guess. Size 1 and 1. Scale 1.16. Okay, now why isn't this? There's 2 different scales. Weird. Is there a way to offset it too? I feel like we should offset it. That's the size. Oh, position. Offset. Oh, 0.5. Is that the magic number? Yeah, sick. Okay, and now scale. Will that go inside? Oh, it's like over the border. Okay, so let's get that under so it's not getting clipped. And then is it scale? Can I make it bigger? Yeah, dude, over crank. Trying to limit me? You can't limit me, dude. Okay, now how do we make this tiny now? Tiling? See, it changes everything. Oh, I mean, this will work, but this is a dirty way we got here. That's not a good scale. There's 2 things called scale. So many parameters. You know what? Don't use tile generator. I take it back. Okay, when this knurling's done, don't ever do this. Let me add a filter. Yeah. This is supposed to be about text, guys. How are you getting me off? How are you doing this to me? Some ghetto masking here. We're just gonna say bye, and then I'm gonna come back and go like this, and then go multiply. So was that worth it? Everything? I don't think so, guys. All right. Just memory wipe that from your brain. Pew. Okay. While we're here, though, I do think there was another little thing that I thought would be cool. So in the chords, we could do fill layer, call it lines. I saw a chord like this in my reference. I wonder if I still have it up. This is the kind of text we're going to do, by the way. We're going to do text like this along the chord, right? So we just need height. We'll just do 0.7 or whatever. Add a black mask. Add a fill. And then we're going to do... line stripes, I think is what it's called. There, stripes. And then tiling is this. I already did this before. 29.03. You see it right here? And then stripes number 32. See? Looks kind of cool, right? It kind of looks like there's like cables inside twisting. I think that's what I saw like in one of the images. So it makes it kind of cool. There you go. I think it looks kind of cool, especially on the black ones. Anyways, we'll leave it there. Why don't I just set the pass through? And then let's do height replace. Let's do a replace on this so we don't get the chords coming through. Pass through on the folder, replace on that. There you go. Okay, cool. And then maybe for the lines, I'll get rid of it on the orange ones. Keep it on the black ones. Maybe that's what we'll do. Now for the main event, let's add some text. All right. So yeah, we're going to do printed text like this along. So what we can do is do it in the chords, and we'll say text, and then pretty easy. But what you can do is you can download fonts to get something specific if you want. So I can just drag this in, and then it knows it's a font, and then I can say whether I want it in my project or in my whole library if I want to use that again and again. So import this font. So we have this .digital font, and there's a couple of different ways you could do it. You could do a fill layer, you could drag it in 3D, and you can also drag it in 2D. And you can see I've laid out the chords horizontally, which is going to help. So if we do a mask here, and then we do color white, now we could type in and then I'll drag this where our text is. I guess we don't need that layer. if we drag in to the viewport. So yeah, there you go. Now we've got this, and we could say, you know, I don't know, this chord is property of chord core label 1905,000 million. Okay, and then I can scale it up, and if we did F2, F1, we could see both of these at the same time, and then we can really see like what size it is. Okay, that's obviously what the big. I'm holding shift now, get a position of it, something like that. I like it. It's kind of squashed. That would be kind of cool, squashing it. We could also do some text effects. So I think if I hold control and shift, I can scale it down. Okay, that's cool. All right, now let's do some more effects here to show you. So one thing is, I'll show you in the UV. So over here for UV wrap, you can wrap just horizontally. So now it's just going horizontally, which helps us for our row, right? And then also I could kind of spread out. You see how the little bit more spacing in the letters if we wanted to, you know, well, we have that ability under advanced character spacing. Space it out a little bit. Looks a little bit more printed, I think, like that, right? And then so you could copy this a few times. So if I hold Alt and drag up, I got another one. Maybe I don't want it to be perfectly in view. Drag it up again, and then we'll just put it on the other one. And then maybe we want it to be a little bit darker so that we can still see it on both. All right, so now we put some text on there, and you could similarly, that's just some of the text effects. So I could show you tiling horizontally, character spacing in advance. You can do more spacing and stuff, but yeah, you could use this to even make some of the decals that we're doing before if you want to put it on a sticker or whatever. You know, it comes up from time to time, but I think it's really easy to use fonts, bring in fonts, drag them, change them. So yeah, super easy and intuitive now if you wanted to add text to your textures. Let's texture this glass visor, last but not least. So to do that, we're gonna come over, I turn off the lights too, a little distracting. So to do that, we're gonna jump over to our texture set for the visor. Now we wanna do transparency. To do that, we have to make sure that we're using a shader that can do transparency. You can see the two here, Metal Rough with Alpha Test and Metal Rough with Alpha Blending. Blending lets you do gradients, and that's what we want. Okay, so we're on there. Now, the other prerequisite is you have to have an opacity channel or else you can't see through this, right? So we're gonna come in here, we're gonna add an opacity. So there you go. So first thing that we'll do is we'll add a base. All right, and then we can give it some color. Pretty much what I had before. I don't know if the color is gonna matter that much when we render it, to be honest, but it's just set an anchor, a base, you know. Whoa, I've got caps lock on. Roughness, so small, 0.1. Metallic, we're gonna go 1. Looking like glass so far, right? And then opacity, 0.2. And there you go. We've got some glass, don't we? Look, got some glass. And if I come in here to the iRay, the you know, ray trace renderer, look at that. We can render glass, and it's actually going through. Now this model, I did try to double up the glass to make it look thick, but I honestly, I might just delete one layer because it doesn't really work, and it's not gonna, we're not gonna do an actual simulation or anything. So I'll probably just keep it one layer thin. But for the sake of this, we'll continue on. But there you go, we have some glass, right? Maybe we should have done this earlier so that it at least could look cool. Let's add some detail here. You can see that's a perfect reflection. We can see the environment. But let's start to add some cool stuff, some nuances here. Let's jump back over to the paint mode. First thing, fingerprints. That's fun. Right? So we're just going to create some normal kind of grungy stuff, scratches and fingerprints, and then we'll fade the edge, put a fade around the edge too. So it's kind of a transition. We don't have this, you know, perfectly sharp thing. Helps draws attention to the face, and then, you know, some interesting things can happen. Might look like breath or like help with the light and the glow. So again, just to show a few different techniques. So fingerprints, and then BC, let's do a little bit brighter. And then roughness, this is gonna be our main tool. And then opacity 1. So the fingerprints are gonna like have schmutz on there, but we can dial these things in after. But so let's add a black mask, and then there's some fingerprint maps in here. Let's see which ones. Fingerprints dirty, grunge, fingerprints dirty. Cool. Look, it's already looking cool, dude. Already cool, man. But yeah, tiling. Let's go more than that. Let's just look at what we're doing here. The fingerprints are still really big. Balance. A little bit more. Cool. Nice. Okay, now that's just fingerprints straight on there. Let's get a little bit more interesting, right? Actually, I think I'm just gonna delete this extra. You can see it's doubling up. So I'm gonna fix this right now. Okay, I just made it one plane now and re-imported it. Okay, so let's go back to our visor. All right, so we have fingerprints. Let's add some more stuff. Let's add more layers so it's just not just straight up this. We can add things that like it's wiping, right? So we'll like someone's trying to wipe it off or whatever. So let's go do wipe smudgy soft, and we need to tile this to and then we're gonna make this multiply. So there you go. So someone's been wiping it away. Cool. And then maybe we could do clouds. I mean, I might just honestly I could just do this whole thing. I'm just gonna call this smudges and add more stuff. Let's do clouds. Okay. And I know this is whatever, but I'm gonna make it be like so minimal. But again, just so it's not perfect, you know. Nice. That looks better. Okay. Now let's do the edges I was talking about. Let's do a new layer, edges, and then we'll add our BC here, darker, and then roughness again, 0.88, 88, and then opacity 1. Let's do black mask. Let's see if we can see what we're cooking here. And we're gonna do the ambient occlusion is how we're gonna start this. You can see already, right? So we're gonna try to turn this into a thing. So we do global invert and then blur. Let's up this and the global balance. There we go, something like this. And then can we blur the crapola out of it? Yeah, see, something like that. And then we'll do some negative in here so it's not perfect again. Why don't we do fingerprints smeared, is this it? And then we'll tile that to be about the size of a hand, something like that, I guess. And then, there's just a little bit of tooth to it. There we go. All right, looking cooler, right? Let's finish up. We'll do a sharpen on here. You can see the difference, much better, right? Now let's do scratches, and then I can mess around with the scratch generator. Let's add a black mask to this. Well, let's set our settings, I guess. So we'll do height. I'm not gonna export this probably though. You could if you wanted to, and just replace the normal map, I suppose. Roughness, we'll make it a little bit, and then we'll add a black mask to this. Add our fill layer, and we'll go back to the scratches generator. Okay, and we'll mess around with this. All right, so spline number 25, spline scale 2, spline width smaller, and then random, yeah, lots of random. Angles fine, spline rotation random fine, distortion a little bit less, distortion frequency. We want big wobbles is essentially what we want. And then luminance random 1 is good. Distortion random, I don't know, sure. There you go. So we got some scratches there. And then the fade mode, we'll do start and end. I like that more. So it just comes in and out, you know. All right, let's see what we got. So as it moves over, you can see, again, we don't need, like, you know, you don't need the height. I mean, it looks better in the render, but there we go. So we got some scratches. All right, let's see what we cooked up. There's our helmet now with some smudges on there. Maybe the edge is a little bit too much. Edges, that's the blur. Faux show. Cool. I love this is most of my time is just moving the lights around of stuff. But yeah, there we go. So we have all of the pieces with textures. I'm going to finish up with just some finishing touches, things I put at the very top of my stack, and also double checking PBR. And then we'll briefly go over export settings and then get this in Unreal. All right, so back in our substance project, I'll demo this on the helmet. It has the biggest texture stack. All right, so here's our helmet thing, our helmet texture stack that we've built up over time. So I'll add a new folder at the top. I'll just call it finish. And then we're gonna set this to pass through on all channels like we've been doing. Now, the first thing is, one of the things I wanna do is I wanna pick up all the edges and pop it out. All right, so we're gonna drag this matte FX HBO in here. Let's hop over to the ambient occlusion so we can see what's going on. You can see it automatically goes to the height channel. That's good. So to see what it's doing, you can see it's actually picking up that height detail that we added, that model detail, right? Which is good. That's exactly what we want. Even the sticker, super cool. Okay, but we also want to add these normal stamps. Those are the normal map channel, right? Not the height. So I come over to ambient occlusion. I'm just gonna duplicate this by holding Alt and dragging up. This one's gonna be normal. There you go. Now it's normal. But you can see it's replacing everything. So if we set this to multiply, then we get it, you know, we get the normal stamps combined together. So you can zoom in here. We get the AO in the cavity of our normal stamps too. So again, it just really helps seat these things in as if they were modeled. Okay. Nice little finishing touch to put at the very top. Okay. Easy to do. All right. Now I'm going to do another thing, which is adding a paint layer. And then you can call this is a global control. So we're in AO right now. If we go to base color and I set this to pass through on all channels. Now this folder is already passed through on all channels. So that means it'll affect everything below. So, you know, for instance, nice little thing to do at the end is to add a sharpen, and you can add it on all these channels that you want, maybe even height if you want to, right? Now, but on this global layer, I can do anything. I can also, you know, add a levels. I can add an HSL, right? If I wanted to change the color temperatures of everything, see what I mean? The lightness, darkness, whatever, because this is my global control at the top. Again, just easy practice. I can probably illustrate that by showing you one last thing that you want to do towards the end of your texturing project, a node for validating your PBR values. I'm doing Unreal, so I'll show you the setting to change for Unreal and why this is really useful. So this is how it works. It's called PBR validate. So again, a final step I would do, I'll type in PBR validate. There it is. And you want to drag this to the top of your stack. You want to be very, very top. And now over here for the albedo dark range, you want to set this to 50 sRGB. This is for Unreal. Now there's an ACES tone map and things are very complicated and everything changes all the time. But still, this is probably a good practice. It's better to be a little bit lighter than too dark. And once you're too dark with your values, it gets crushed and then it just looks not that good. Everything is not like that black, right? Everything gets a little shinier and stuff like that. So by changing it to the 50 sRGB dark threshold, it's a little bit higher. So you can see this is the red parts are too dark in our base color. So we want to lift them up, and we'll use the global control to do that. Come over here and we'll add a levels, and then we'll just bring this left. We're on the base color affected channels. And yeah, so I just brought up a little bit. And I'm okay with a little bit of red and like yellow and stuff. This is fine. So we just slightly tweaked it, and we can turn this validator off, and there you go. So yeah, there is our nice helmet. There we go. Look at that. Wow. Textured. Lots of different things going on, right? Cool. We want to export this out, right? So let's talk about export settings. I'll briefly cover it, and then I'll just apply an export preset that I have. I'll go over what it does, and then we'll export this and we'll see what happens, what it looks like when you just directly import it into a level that I already made. So let's talk about exporting this out. So here we go. We have our whole thing here. So what we want to do is, let's close this stuff up. All right. Now, under texture set settings, no, it's not. Well, I always do the hotkey Control-Shift-E, which I guess is the same as export textures right here. So if we come over here, you'll see the export textures kind of settings. They might look different by default. If you come over here, I don't know what output template it could be on. Like it could be on, there's an Unreal one, right? Unreal Engine packed. And so if we come into the output templates, you can see I've made some. If we go to Unreal Engine packed, you can see how these are set up. So this is a good way to just learn, you know, the different ways people are doing this stuff. But I'll go over my export preset, which I'm using. So I'm going to go over to CCUE UDIM, and I'll just keep it there, honestly. And I'll show you what that is. So CCUE UDIM. So here we go. So this, and you can see this little button lets you choose these common variables for your naming conventions, which are different based on what you want to do in your projects and all that stuff. So just to read this is the project, which is helmet demo, helmet_demo. Then the texture set, which is helmet for me, all right? And this is cables right here. These are the texture set names. And then for base color, I'm saying BC, and I'm saying that's the base color right here. And then UDIM, because my helmet has multiple UDIMs. Now you could change it per, but it's okay. It's a personal project. So I'll show you how you can do that if you want, but that's it. So this is it. If I go to list of exports, it'll tell you this is what it's going to write out. Helmet demo cables, helmet demo helmet, and you see BC, mask, normal map, PBR, and it's got my UDIMs on there. So you can see it's pretty crazy, like, because I have 4 UDIMs on my helmet. Look how many textures it's going to export just from my helmet. It's pretty bananas. If I come over here, you can see how this is packed. So this is normal, the base color, and then in the alpha, I'm putting the opacity mask. And then in PBR, this is normal way to do it. You do the mixed AO in R, and then roughness in G, metallic in B. Emissive, I put in A. You could swap these two if you really want to, but that's okay. And then it's normal DirectX. That's the regular thing to do. And then the mask is just these extra things for like costumes and stuff. So what I can do is I can just say for the helmet, just don't export masks. I can check it off. And here, the helmet, we don't need the masks. Cables, mask. And you can see I can even uncheck particular tiles, and then I can even overwrite. So the visor and the cables don't have a UDIM. I can actually come in here and then just change it to the version without the UDIM if I wanted to be really clean about it. So it's really cool. You have full control over everything. The moment has finally arrived. So in secret, in the background, I have a scene made in Unreal, ready to import these textures. So here it is right here. We have the helmet. I got the material set up. Theoretically, we just got to export our textures and everything will magically pop up. So hopefully that's what happens. But yeah, let's see if we can experience the fruits of our labor here. Let's jump back over to Substance, and we are going to double check our settings. We have the cables, helmet, visor. Good, good, good. And we have our list of exports. Okay, so we're going to hit export and hopefully nothing crashes. Here we go. We're in for it. Let's go. The computer fan is spinning up. Let's go over to Unreal and see what happens. Did everything name right? Is it going to auto import? I don't know. I guess it's not going to auto import. Let's see here. All right. So now we got to go here. Oh, I wonder if, one sec. False alarm. Okay. Let's come in here. Let's do this again. Okay. So in the export settings, we need to make sure I'm choosing the right directory. So we're going to go to D, Unreal Projects, Helmet Girl Textures. Select. I think that's right. Content, Helmet Girl Textures, hair. That's right. Okay, there we go. Running out of video memory. Oh boy. Okay, so we're going to hit, it's output, list of exports. Okay, we're going to hit export. There it goes, exporting all these textures. So many textures. Look at all those textures. And then we'll see here it comes importing in. Oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. My computer is flying right now. There we go. Hey, check it out. A little bit blocky. Maybe we got to stream in, get a little closer here. So yeah, it's working. It's working. I will show you some stuff when it comes to these textures. So for the normal map, all right, let's see if it's done it right. Did it do it right? Okay, good. sRGB should be off. These look a little too shiny, so I have a feeling. Yeah, sRGB is on. We don't want that. Holy shit. Hello. And then save that. What else do we got? We could probably just do it all at once. My computer's crying over here, by the way. Let's go over here and pause this. We don't need this loading all the time. Okay, let's see. So we got PBR here, normal map, cables. Let's do it on the property matrix. sRGB should be off from all these. So is the roughness just way too rough for the glass? I guess that's what's happening. So let's, holy shit, dude, the frame rate's unbelievable. All right, let's open my glass. And then for max roughness, let's drop this because this is crazy. Yo, the frame rate is insane, guys. All right, there is a helmet with some cool stuff in Unreal, real-time rendering. Looking cool, super low frame rate, but good for portfolios, you know? But yeah, we got the detail on there, lots of paint and everything, looking pretty cool. We got the emissive. There you go. We got there in the end. There is a texture demo. And that is how I did this helmet texture. That's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching. If you made it all the way to this point, I just want to say again that the project files are available down below and the full unedited version is available at characterclass.com for students and also channel members and patrons. So I truly hope that this video has helped in some way, and if you end up texturing the helmet and you do something awesome yourself, I would love to see it. Please tag me, message me, share with me. I just would love to see anything that you guys make, and I hope this helps you make awesome textures. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.